okay?
Absolutely.
All right, this witness is with the defendant.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Dorian. Could you introduce yourself to the jury?
Good morning. My name is Dorian Thomas.
Dorian, where do you live?
I live in Selma, North Carolina.
Okay, and before we jump into the events at issue in this trial, let's give the jury a little background on you. Where'd you grow up?
Okay, so I grew up in Smithfield, Selma area. I went to Triple S High School, graduated in 1992. Did underground utility construction for almost 20 years, moved to Florida in 2000 with work. Lived there till 2010. Met my ex-wife, had a daughter. She's now 18. Then I moved back in 2010. Reason I moved back is the job that I was working for in Florida at the time had an opening here. My father was working contract work in Iraq, and my mother was had to have a major surgery as well. So it was kind of good in both ways because one, I could come help my mother with all the stuff around the house, and two, just be back close to family.
You mentioned you had a family in Florida. When was your daughter born?
My daughter was born in 2006.
Okay, and I think you said she's 18 now, is that right?
Yes.
Have you maintained a relationship with your daughter?
Absolutely.
After the move to Florida, do y'all see each other regularly?
We don't see each other as much as we'd like, but we do. She comes up for holidays. I go down there with travels with my work now, and I try to see her every time I go. And she tries to, and we keep in touch. We talk a lot.
You mentioned your work now. Could you tell the jury about what your work now is?
Okay, so I own a company. It's called Blaze Performance Cycles. I build custom Harleys, do pretty much anything you can do to a Harley. That's a passion. I've been on motorcycles my whole life. I've raced them, I've rode them, I've done everything on a motorcycle about that it could be done, and now I build them.
How long have you had that business?
I started it in 2015.
Okay, is that located here in Johnston County?
It is. It's in Selma.
Okay. Dorian, on March the 17th of 2024, the day of the events that we've been talking about here, just for the record, what was your height and your weight?
6'2", 190.
Okay. Hillary Lombardi was one of the witnesses that the state called during the course of their case. You had a relationship with Hillary, is that right?
I did.
Can you tell the jury about when you met her and how that relationship started?
Okay, so I met her in 2017 at an event called Fall Ball. A couple friends of mine, we had an extra ticket, so they invited her to come along, and we met and basically just hung out all night and became somewhat friends and just had conversations, and then kind of kept up with each other over the years, and then we started dating in 2020, August of 2020.
And when you all started dating, did it progress to the point that y'all lived together?
Yes, it did.
When was that?
I don't know the actual date. I want to say it was around April or May of 21.
Okay. And when you all moved in together, where'd you live initially?
So what I had done is where my shop was located at the time, which was on Rock Pillar Road in Clayton, it had an office area, and I ended up building it out into an apartment. So it was basically a 1.5 bedroom apartment. So if my daughter came, she could stay there as well. Plus, no drive to work every day.
And so Hillary moved in with you there, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Did there come a time when y'all moved?
We did. In April of 22, we moved to a house on 333 Bear Oak, which was right down the road from 151, actually.
Okay, so these events that we've been talking about occurred at 151. Can you relate to how far away was 333 Bear Oak?
Probably about an 1/8 mile around the curve in the neighborhood.
Okay. And when did you all move from 333 Bear Oak to 151 Bear Oak, which is the house at issue in this case?
April of 20, let's see, 20, 1, 22. That'd be April of 23.
Okay. When you all were living together, at some point, did you become engaged to get married?
We did.
And when was that?
It was in April of 21.
Okay. We've heard about Riley, your child, with Hillary. When was Riley born?
Riley was born in January of 2023, January 3rd.
So that was a few months before the move from 333 to 151, is that right?
That is correct.
Was that a factor in y'all moving houses?
Absolutely, because the house that we were living in was actually an apartment under another house. Very nice piece of property, but the problem was it was a long walk down to the house and from the driveway. So I felt that, one, carrying a baby or groceries or anything you want to carry down to the house was kind of a hike, and it was like, now that we have a newborn, I think we need to kind of get a different property, somewhere a little bit nicer to live. That way it was more conducive to a family.
Okay, and during this time period, y'all have Riley, she's an infant, 3 months old in April of 2023. You were working at that point
I was.
in the business you own, is that right? Was Hillary working?
Yes, she was.
Okay, and what kind of work was Hillary doing?
Hillary is a loan processor with a bank out of Raleigh.
Okay, was she going to work or was she working from home at that point?
For a while, she had to go back and forth to work, but she was working from home at this point.
Okay, so when you all, April 2023 going forward, can you just sort of briefly tell the jury day to day how you all managed work and care of Riley?
Okay, so when Riley was young, it wasn't really hard for her to work from home because she slept a lot, and she could take care of her on breaks or whatnot. And then as she progressed into crawling and moving around, I would stay home a little later in the morning. I would get up with her, feed her, get her ready for the day, change her diaper, all the stuff you would do in the morning, to get the baby going and get it where I could get out of the house.
And while you were doing that, was Hillary working?
Yes.
Okay. When you did that first thing in the morning, did you then go to work at some point during the day typically?
I did.
What time would that have been?
Normally it was around 10.
Okay. And was that kind of the routine during the time that you all lived together?
Yes.
All right. We've heard some evidence about the fact that you all eventually broke up and Hillary moved out in December of 2023. Can you sort of just in general describe kind of what led to y'all breaking up?
It was a lot of factors. One was finances. Two were, just, I kind of felt like there was some.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Thomas. Were there times in y'all's relationship when it was a really good relationship?
Absolutely.
Were there times in y'all's relationship where it wasn't working well?
Absolutely.
Would you all, and during those times, would you all argue?
Yes, sir.
Would you yell at each other even?
Sometimes.
Okay. Was alcohol a problem in your relationship with Hillary?
Sometimes.
And describe for the jury how that was a problem.
So when we would go out or go places, Hillary never wanted to stop. She always wanted to keep the party going, wanted to keep drinking and hanging out. And it was just, it became a problem.
Ultimately, we've heard about this move out in December. Is that when you all kind of broke up, or was there a period of time before that where you lived together but were not a couple?
So we actually broke up sometime in it was October, right before Halloween. And then I moved to the other bedroom, still stayed, tried to get up with the baby, tried to do everything, but it was a very tense situation.
Okay. ultimately, Hillary moved out, where did she move to?
She moved to an apartment in Clayton, and
Okay. Who was she living with there?
she was living with just the baby by herself.
Okay. And we'll talk more later about Riley and you being with Riley, but let's focus now on the time period when Hillary's moving out of the house on Bear Oak, okay?
Okay?
We've heard testimony from the state that this occurred in December of 2023. Is that consistent with your memory?
December 10th.
Okay. December the 10th. And the state has introduced into evidence that lease that you all and Hillary signed when you moved to 151 Bear Oak. Do you remember that document?
I do.
Okay. Now, when Hillary moved out on December the 10th, before we talk about what happened, let's talk a little bit about going forward from there. After she moved out, did Hillary have any belongings in the house at 151?
No, she had no belongings in the house at all.
And after she moved out from that day until the 17th of March, St. Patrick's Day, did she ever even come to 151 Bear Oak?
No, she did not.
Did she have a key to 151 Bear Oak after she moved out?
Not that I was aware of.
Okay. Did she have a garage door opener to Bear Oak that you were aware of?
No.
So, when you all moved into 151, who paid the rent on the house?
So I paid the rent every month, but Hillary sent me money via Cash App.
Okay, so when you all initially moved in, were you, for lack of a better term, sharing expenses?
Somewhat.
Okay. In December, after Hillary moved out, did Hillary ever pay any money towards the rent?
No.
Did she pay any money towards the utilities?
No.
Okay. So after December 10th, is it fair to say that you bore the entire financial responsibility for 151 Bear Oak?
Yes, I did.
Did Hillary ever express to you after December 10th any interest in coming back or moving back into 151 Bear Oak?
No, she did not.
Now let's talk about December the 10th, and we've heard testimony about the move out, okay? Describe for the jury what you remember. What were the arrangements for how that was going to happen?
So I didn't feel that it was necessary that I be at the home when she was moving out, simply because, one, things were kind of, tense, and then I just didn't want to be around. I didn't want to be around the house. You know, my mother said, "Look, you know what? Don't go over there. Let them do their thing," and that's what I did.
Okay, so do you remember, was this a multi-day move out or was it one day as far as you remember?
It was actually, I think it took them 3 days.
Okay. We've heard testimony about at some point you came there to that location. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
What caused you to come there that day?
So in the afternoon, I texted Ryan and asked, did they still have Riley at the house? Ryan and Sheena were keeping Riley during this. So I decided, I said, I text Ryan, hey, do you have Riley? Are y'all still at the house? I'd like to come by and hang out a little bit, whatnot. And they said, no, we're actually on the way over to the house now. I said, okay, well, I'll meet you there.
And when you went over there, what did you discover?
Well, I got there and I walked in the house and there was a lot of stuff gone that wasn't supposed to be gone. Furniture, stuff my aunt was, she was going into assisted living, and she left me a lot of, helped her move everything out of her house, and she left me a lot of kitchen stuff. I mean, a lot, like, because she was she was Italian, so, they like to cook, and again, she left me anything I wanted out of the kitchen. She left me the or gave me, I say left me, she's still alive, but she gave me the refrigerator, she gave me a washer and dryer, all kinds of kitchen utensils, and just a lot of stuff that was helping, you know, was just giving it to me so I could have stuff for the future and whatever we do. And
So let me interrupt you on that point, Dorian. Prior to Hillary and her family and friends coming over that weekend to move out, did you do anything to identify sort of what was yours and what was hers?
I did.
What'd you do?
I took everything that she moved in with and then added some stuff to that, put it all on the counter in the kitchen. And in the garage, I split everything into twos. So one side was mine, one side was hers. So she knew what she could take on this side, and the rest of the stuff on this side was mine.
Did you inform Hillary of that prior to the move out starting?
I did.
Okay. And when you got there that day, you were describing that you saw things had been taken that were, is it fair to say things had been taken that you had separated out as quote unquote yours?
Yes.
Could I approach the witness, Sean?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hand you Mr. Thomas, who has previously been identified as defense exhibit number 6, and ask you to look at that. Do you recognize that document?
I do.
Now, in preparing for the trial of this case, were you involved in reviewing the download of Hillary Lombardi's phone that had been produced according to the discovery laws in this case?
Yes, sir.
Were you also involved in reviewing the Facebook records of various people, including Hillary Lombardi, that had been produced as part of the discovery laws in this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is defense exhibit number 6?
It's a message between Lisa Freeman and Hillary.
Okay. Do you remember Hillary testifying about that message and identifying it as a conversation she had on Facebook?
I do.
Does the subject of that Facebook message relate to this issue of the move out that we're talking about?
It does.
Your Honor, I move defense exhibit 6 into evidence.
Any objection?
Your Honor, state does object based on hearsay and foundation.
Let me see that. Can you pass that document, please? All right. Mr. Zezatarsky, you need to be heard outside the presence of the jury.
Your Honor, I can explain the basis for its admission, yes.
I'm going to do that in respect outside the presence of the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please do not express an opinion. Do not form an opinion. Do not discuss the case. I will bring you back in momentarily. Everyone else remain seated other than law enforcement while the jury leaves the courtroom. If you'll leave your pens and pads in your chairs. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. Let the record reflect the jury has left the courtroom. The court will indicate that counsel for the defense is asking to have defense exhibit number 6 introduced into evidence. I believe this is my understanding is some post or a Facebook post between, I believe at least this document represents Hillary May, which I would assume is Ms. Lombardi, and another person, and that person's name, according to this document, is Lisa Freeman. I do believe that Ms. Lombardi testified in reference to this Facebook post, but not recalling that she testified outside the presence of the jury. Did we do that in front of the jury? The reason why I'm asking is because there was a reference made to this Mr. Wilson. So I wanted, before I turn back to Mr. Zezatars, I want to address that issue first with the state.
Your Honor, I believe she testified to it, but I believe that was subject to her being approached, presented with the document, and cross-examined on what her statement was. If that answers the court's question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Zezatars.
That was the first time I brought it up, Your Honor. Your Honor will remember yesterday morning, the first thing I did with Ms. Freeman is I gave her Defendant's Exhibit 6, and you'll remember that I told her I did not want her to read the contents of it to the jury, but I wanted her to affirm that that was in fact a message that she sent to Lisa Freeman, and she did. So there is foundation. She's admitted it's her message. There's foundation anyway because he just testified. He went through the Facebook records and pulled this out. These are records from the state. That doesn't go, that's foundation. If the state wants to argue something about weight, they can. It doesn't affect admissibility. It's admissible, and it's obviously it's impeachment of Ms. Lombardi in terms of how this December move-out has been presented.
All right. Anything further, Mr. Gill?
Your Honor, just number one, this is a complete document. It's not been redacted as we did similarly with the text from Emily's phone. So there is a dialogue there. If it's introduced as it currently exists, then the jury gets access to all of that potential hearsay. So the objection to hearsay is not just as to the statement that maybe Ms. Lombardi has already acknowledged as her own. The objection is to hearsay is the document itself consists of hearsay, which I haven't heard an exception for. As far as foundation goes, Ms. Lombardi has attested to that statement. I'm not really arguing that point, but as far as a greater foundational issue, the state has not introduced the Facebook records. Those are business records, and they have not been authenticated as such. So I do think it's confusing for the jury to introduce that document through this witness who was not a party to this conversation. I mean, I could ask him those questions, but I think what Mr. Zezatarsky asked him already is, Mr. Thomas, have you reviewed this conversation between Hillary Lombardi and Lisa Freeman? So it's not clear that he's a part of that. He doesn't have personal knowledge of it. So having him read from a hearsay document, even if Hillary's already acknowledged that statement, I would say maybe it's not the proper way to admit this evidence.
All right.
It's not hearsay. She testified, and it impeaches her testimony. It's not hearsay.
All right. All right, well, the court's going to do this. First of all, in reference to Defense Exhibit number 6, any statements involving a Lisa Freeman who has not testified for the state of North Carolina, and do you intend on calling Lisa Freeman, Mr. Zezatarsky?
No.
So therefore, the court would redact any statement in this exhibit dealing with comments made by Lisa Freeman. The court recognizes that the witness was not a party to this conversation. However, respectfully, Ms. Lombardi did testify and acknowledge this statement. Therefore, the court is going to allow Defense Exhibit number 6 into evidence with the redacted statements. Anything that Ms. Freeman says in this document will be redacted, Mr. Zezatarsky. And I'll note your objection respectfully, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Zezatarsky, I'm going to return Defense Exhibit back to you, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to redact the statements that are there by Ms. Freeman. Once you've redacted those, if you will show that to the district attorney, and then once they are satisfied that the redaction has been completed, then the court will allow for you to introduce Defense Exhibit 6 into evidence. So if you need time to do that, which I would think you would, that's fine.
I'm going to need time to do that, Your Honor, and the problem with that is obviously I don't have a printer sitting here, and I'm hoping that I'm technologically able to redact it.
If Mr. Zatarski can send it to us, we're glad to print it.
And Mr. Zatarski, I'm fine if you want to introduce that a little bit later during the testimony, but if the state is allowing for agreement, you can send that to them, and I'm assuming that they're going to help with that redaction, then that would be fine.
Well, what I would ask the court to do, for the sake of the jury's time, is if you could give me a minute. I want to publish this statement so the jury can see it. If you could give me a minute to try to finagle my screen here so only that statement shows. And then at a break, I can redact it.
I'm actually fine with if you can redact it electronically and show it to them so we can move on and then admit the redacted copy later. That is fine with the state too, based on the court's ruling.
That would be fine.
Let
I'll give you a
me,
moment, Mr. Zatarski.
let me try to do this, Your Honor. The relevant portion of the message at the bottom, the relevant statement by Ms. Hillary. Everything above that is redacted on the screen, and I can substitute one in, Your Honor, a redacted copy for the record. I try to do that at the break.
Mr. Zatarski, and that's fine. Let me make sure so the record's clear. For your exhibit, will it be your intention after the court's order that the statements of Lisa Freeman shall be redacted? Are you now telling the court respectfully that the only statement you're really concerned about is that last statement given by Ms. Lombardi, and that's the only thing that you're asking to have introduced?
Yes.
Okay. And the court has indicated, I understand the state's objection, noted for the record respectfully. However, I will allow for defense exhibit number 6 to be introduced into evidence. The redacted portion and will be all the statements of Lisa Freeman that are redacted, and apparently along with Ms. Lombardi's statements prior to that last statement. That's the only statement that's going to be introduced in evidence. But your objection is noted respectfully.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Yes, sir. And are you ready to proceed?
I am, Your Honor, and after Your Honor rules on the objection, I was going to ask to publish this redacted version, which I just showed Mr. Wilson.
All right. And I will put that on the record in front of the jury. All right. Sheriff, we can bring the jury on. Jury is back in the courtroom. The objection is overruled. The court will allow for defense exhibit number 6, which has been redacted, into evidence. I believe Mr. Zatarski Tarski, is it your motion to ask to publish Defense Exhibit 6 to the jury?
It is, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Daly?
Just my previous objection, Your Honor.
And the previous objection respectfully is noted. Respectfully overruled. At this time, the defense may publish the redacted portion of Defense Exhibit 6 to this jury. Do you want the lights out?
No, Your Honor, it's short. Oh, Your Honor, I just screwed it up, son. I'm sorry.
And have you take that off the screen.
I'm working on it right now.
Mr. Levitarski, if you save it as a PDF and then reopen it, the redactions will apply.
Okay, I think we've got it now. If I save it as a PDF?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, you can see that I am not much of a techno guy.
I understand.
Thank you. I think that worked. Yes, ma'am, it's saved now. It should work.
Okay. Send me a note.
Okay, we're looking, Dorian, at Defense Exhibit 6. And what is the date that that message was sent?
12/9/2023.
Okay, so you talked about December the 10th being the day that you went over there. This is the day before, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And in the second line, it says, Dorian just said I can't have the dresser and TV stand. Is that what you told Ms. Hillary?
I did.
Okay. And then this message, Hillary writes that her sister and family took those things out into a U-Haul. Do you remember a U-Haul being there when you got there?
It was.
And then she makes a statement at the end, he doesn't know what kind of crazy family he is dealing with. Do you remember, Mr. Thomas, when you got out there, did you see this furniture that you had talked with Hillary about not taking actually in the U-Haul?
I did not, because I think they took it the day before I got there.
Okay. And we can take that down now. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
When you got out there that day and saw what had happened in terms of the furniture and belongings, what happened at that point?
I got upset.
Did you talk with Hillary about that?
I did.
And what happened when you talked with Hillary about that?
Basically, it was a back and forth. Like I said, you knew you weren't supposed to take this stuff. It wasn't yours to take. I was still actually paying for the furniture she took, and I still am to this day. And then I went through the kitchen and I saw what was going out of the kitchen, and it was about probably 75% of the stuff that wasn't hers. It was just given to me by my aunt.
Okay. Did you and Hillary argue about that?
We did.
Okay. Did other people argue with you about that?
Emily stepped in between us, and we started arguing as well, because Emily said that she was the one that packed the kitchen.
Okay. And ultimately, was there a lot of yelling back and forth?
There was some heated exchanges, yes.
Okay. Was there ever any physical contact between anybody?
No.
All right. And when you saw this happen, what happened after this argument?
Well, I walked outside, and there was an old dresser there that I owned, and instead of, I kicked the dresser and was just upset. I didn't want to, how can I put this? I was very disappointed and upset, and
Okay. And what happened then?
well, I walked up to the car where Ryan had the baby and his daughter, which I knocked on the window. He opened the door, and
Okay, and don't tell us about y'all's conversation.
no.
But ultimately, who left first? Did they leave or did you leave?
They left first.
Okay. After this, after this exchange with you and Hillary and Emily, was there any further interaction, or did they leave?
They left. She left her makeup bag in the downstairs bathroom, and her dad's truck was still there because he was driving the U-Haul. So I sent a message and said, "You left your makeup bag," and I stuck it on the back of the truck.
Okay, other than that makeup bag, were any of Hillary's belongings otherwise still in the house?
No, sir.
Okay. What did you see when you went into the house after they left?
The house was a wreck.
Okay. Did you make a video of that?
Yes, I did,
And why'd you do that?
because I wanted to document what the house looked like after it was done. After she had moved out, excuse me.
And where did you save that video?
I saved it on my phone.
In preparation for trial, did you review that video?
I did.
And what's depicted on the video, just generally?
I start in the upstairs bedroom. I walk through the bedroom into the master bathroom, then across the hall into the baby's room, then downstairs through the kitchen. Then I walk into the garage. Well, I take that back. I'd go through the living room and then into the kitchen and then into the garage.
And was that video that we're talking about on your phone when it was seized by the police?
It was,
And have you recently confirmed that it was in fact on your phone?
yes.
And how'd you do that?
I had a download of my entire phone.
And that was through the discovery that was produced by the state in this case?
It was.
Okay. Your Honor, could I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hand you what I marked as defense exhibit number 7, which is a thumb drive. Did we download a copy of that video?
We did.
And did you review it to make sure that it was the same video that is the one on your phone?
I did.
And is that on defense exhibit number 7?
It is.
Your Honor, we moved defendant 7 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, defense exhibit 7 shall be accepted into evidence.
We'd have to publish that, Your Honor. It's short.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the defense may publish defense exhibit 7 to the jury. Do you want the lights out?
Sure, I think it'd make it easier to see, Your Honor. Thank you.
Sheriff.
We can take that down, Your Honor, now. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Sheriff.
Mr. Thomas, is it fair to say that this occasion on the move out was one of the bad times during your relationship with Hillary?
Yes, that's fair to say.
Now, we heard when Hillary testified yesterday that just a few weeks later, at the end of December into early January, you all actually spent several nights together at her apartment. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay. And how do we get from sort of what we just saw to where you all are spending the night together?
So, Christmas holidays, I was missing my family. I reached out and said, you know, can we, I wanted to see the baby, and she had her at that moment. So I said, well, look, do you want me to bring dinner? So I brought dinner. And we had a good night. And so I ended up spending the night. And the next day she asked, did I want to come back? I said, sure. And I came back again. And over the next couple days, it was to the fact, you know, it was kind of one of those, she said, and this was her words, she said, well, this is kind of like a fresh start. You know, we're not living together. Maybe that was the problem, you know, but we still love each other. We have Riley. Let's give it a shot.
So that last sort of time period ended December, very beginning of January was, is it fair to characterize that as an effort at reconciliation by both of you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, during this time period, Dorian, did you begin making any notations about how often you were seeing Riley?
So when Hillary moved out of the house, I started taking notes because there was a custody case coming. I took notes of every time I picked her up, dropped her off, the time, the date, anything I paid for, and anything that, you know, was basically to do with the baby and myself and Hillary.
Okay, and when did you start doing that?
12/11/23.
So that would have been right after the move-out issue, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, could I approach witness?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to hand you what I've marked as Defense Exhibit 8, Dorian, if you could look at that. It's a two-sided document. What is Defense Exhibit 8?
That's a copy of the notes from my phone.
Okay, and who's the author of the contents of Defense Exhibit 8?
I am.
And the dates that are on Defense Exhibit 8 for the entries, are those dates accurate as to being the time or close to the time when you made those entries?
It is.
And did you verify, was this on your phone at the time it was received by the police on the night of March 17th?
It was.
Okay. And have you since verified with the copy of your phone received in discovery that this was on your phone?
I have.
Okay. And is that accurate as to being the entries that you made into the notes app of your phone?
It is.
Your Honor, we move Defense Exhibit 8 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yeah.
All right. Defense Exhibit 8 shall be accepted into evidence.
Your Honor, I'd ask to publish, and I have copies for each of the jurors.
All right. Any objection to publication of Defense Exhibit 8 to the jury?
Yeah.
All right. Allowed. Thank you. If you'll pass that to the sheriff. And while the sheriff is passing Defense Exhibit 8 to the jury, Mrs. Zatarski, do you want the jury to read Defense Exhibit 8 to themselves or read along with your witness?
If it's permissible, Your Honor, I'd ask if they could look at it and review it. It's relatively short, 2 pages, and then I'm going to ask just a few questions about the entries on the back, and then we'll,
Ladies and gentlemen, once you receive Defense Exhibit 8, you may review Defense Exhibit 8. Once you are done reviewing that, if you will raise your head so I'll know that you've completed your review.
yesterday from Hillary Lombardi that you had not seen Riley for a month prior to the events of March the 17th. You remember that testimony?
I do.
Was that testimony accurate?
It was not.
If we look at the back page of your notes, at the bottom entry says 3:15 picked up Riley at 10:45. That was a couple days before the events that we're talking about, right?
That is correct.
And then it looks like the prior time that you had been with Riley was March the 2nd, according to your notes. Is that accurate?
Yes, I picked her up on the 2nd and dropped her off on the 4th.
Okay. And between the 4th and the 15th, where were you?
So I, with my motorcycle shop, I build competition audio bikes, and they have competitions. There's rallies in Daytona, Myrtle Beach, and Sturgis and Panama, which are ones I go to every year. So Daytona was falling in that area of March 5th through, I don't know, 10th or 11th. I can't remember exactly. I went and I stayed for 4 days in Daytona. Then I came back. During that time, I actually called Hillary on the Monday, which would have been, let's see, 15th was Friday, the 10th or 11th, and asked, could I see Riley on Tuesday? Could I come pick her up? And she told me she had plans on Tuesday. So I said, well, she said, well, actually her reply was, the weekend would be better. I said, well, I'll take her on the weekend too, but I'd really like to see her. I haven't seen her since the 4th, which was 6 or 7 days. So anyway, She told me she had plans with the baby Tuesday evening. And then I got a text Tuesday afternoon, oh, we don't have plans anymore. Well, I'd already made plans to work and take care of some stuff, so I ended up, we had made a decision for me to pick her up on Friday at 6 p.m. like normal.
And is that the 15th of March that's noted on your notes?
Yes,
Okay, so you had Riley March the 2nd through March the 4th. When did you previously have Riley with you?
12:25.
You said 12, was that 2?
I'm sorry, 2:25.
Okay, so you had Riley for 2 days, starting February the 25th, is that right?
That's correct.
And how about prior to that, according to your notes?
12:21. I'm sorry, I've got December in my mind from the move out. 2:21.
Okay, and it looks like, again, that was 2 days, is that right?
Yes.
And how about prior to that?
2:16.
Yeah, it looks like that was 2 days at that point, is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, and then you've got some other notations, I won't go through them all that the jury can see there. Is it fair to say that you were regularly, you and Hillary were kind of regularly exchanging custody of Riley at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we'll get into this more later, but during this time period that we're talking about here into February, had you initiated any discussions with Hillary about you actually seeking custody of Riley?
I did.
Okay. And what did you tell Hillary about that?
I wanted more time with my child. That was basically what the gist of the conversation was.
And how did Hillary react to that?
She didn't like it.
Okay. And we'll come back to that. During this time period, Mr. Thomas, when you would have Hillary, and again, I'm talking about the early 2024 time period in the months leading up to March the 17th, did you also create other records showing of the time that you spent with Riley?
I did.
What'd you do?
I posted pictures on Facebook and took pictures in my phone.
Okay. And in preparation for trial, did you, with the assistance of my office, put together some of those Facebook and photo postings?
I did.
And where did you get the material for that?
Off of Facebook.
Okay. And was your Facebook records part of the discovery that was produced in this case?
They were.
And when you reviewed that, was it accurate by your memory as being the things that you had in fact posted on Facebook?
It is.
Okay. And their Facebook postings generally have dates. Were those dates accurate
Yes.
to your knowledge? Okay. Did you remember when you looked at these postings that were contained in the Facebook records in the state's discovery, do you remember whether in fact you did in fact make those postings?
I did.
Okay. And did we put all of those, when we say we, my office, because I'm not technologically savvy enough, did my office work with you to put together an exhibit of those?
We did.
Your Honor, could I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Going to hand you what I've marked, Defendant's Exhibit 9. What is Defendant's Exhibit 9?
What is it? It's a picture of Riley sitting on a trike at the shop.
Well, we talked about my office putting together these postings. Is that Exhibit 9?
It is.
Okay, and looking at the first page, what is the date of the posting on that page?
March 3rd, 2024.
Okay, and if you could just jump to the last page, what's the date of the posting on that page?
December 16th, 2023.
Okay, and if you'll flip through it, is that accurate as being the postings relating to your time with Riley during this time period?
It is.
Your Honor, I move Defendant's Exhibit 9.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Defense Exhibit 9 shall be accepted into evidence.
ask to publish that to the jury on the screen, Your Honor. I'm just gonna, with the court's permission, what I would propose to do is to just flip through it so that the jury can see it. I don't need to spend time sort of explaining each picture at this point.
Thank you. Any objection to the publication?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the defense may publish Defense Exhibit 9 to the jury. Do you want the lights out, Mr. Zatarski?
That would be great, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Get it queued up. And with the court's permission, Your Honor, what I'd intend to do is to just kind of scroll through these and let everybody have a look at them. And I'll just take a couple seconds on each one if that's okay.
That's fine.
Thank you. This one here, Mr. Thomas, where on January 5th, you're referring to both my babies this evening. Who's the other young lady in the photograph?
That's my older daughter, Taylor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll take that down now.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
So, Mr. Thomas, we'll come back to this Exhibit 7 with respect to, or Exhibit 8 rather, with respect to the events of the 17th. But first I want to ask you, we've talked about your relationship with Hillary. We've talked about December into early January, the efforts at reconciliation. Did that happen?
Reconciliation?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Did, after that early January time period when you all were trying to reconcile, can you just in general briefly tell the jury kind of how the relationship went after that?
So, can you elaborate on what you mean by that? Like,
I mean, did y'all wind up getting back together? Did it devolve to where y'all didn't get along? Was it up and down? Can you just describe that for the jury?
absolutely. So, in January, there was we were okay. There was a moment where things were really good from December to New Year's Eve, and then it progressively started to go back downhill after New Year's Eve. We had a birthday party planned, which Emily actually planned the party, did an amazing job. And during that week, I found some messages and some correspondence back and forth between Hillary and someone else, and I confronted them both about it. And at that point, it was just, you know what, I don't, actually, she's the one that said, well, this isn't going to work out, because I confronted a person. I asked them a question. I called them. Their number was on Facebook, so I called him and asked about what was going on, because I was being told one thing and there was something else going on.
Okay, and after that point, were there any further efforts at reconciliation?
So I wasn't done because I wanted to be around my child. And I knew the only way to be around my child until the court case came through with my custody case was to try to be around Hillary and the baby as much as I can. Well, it was unsuccessful.
Okay. And you mentioned the custody case. We've seen the state's exhibit when that was filed in February. Had you been discussing that with Hillary prior to the actual filing of the lawsuit?
I have.
And when you, how many times do you think you talked with Hillary about the issue of seeking custody prior to actually filing the lawsuit?
So I was begging for a parenting plan, some kind of something we could work on that would give us structure and something where we could, meet at the same time, have a set amount of days. And I suggested a couple different options, and she wouldn't go for anything other than what she wanted. And that was one of the reasons why I filed. Why I filed a case. I went to, what's it called, with a lawyer.
Martin?
Well, no, what's the process called? Oh, I put a retainer down with a family law lawyer here in Smithfield, and that was actually in November, but we didn't proceed with the case. I was wanting to make sure everything was going to be over and that we couldn't come to an agreement by ourselves instead of putting it into court, because if you drag the case into court, then it becomes, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's not good. I wanted to try to do something before we actually had to have a judgment put on it. I was paying child support via Cash App. Literally the minute she moved out, I was the one that wanted to have it on the books. I was the one that was seeking a parenting plan. I wanted to have structure. Children need structure. We need structure. We have to have I run a business. She works. Her father was helping with daycare at Hillary's place, and so it was good to have something in place. And I wanted time with my child. At my age now, it's a lot different than having a baby than it is at early 30s, late 20s. So I really, really enjoyed watching her learn and just spending time with her because I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything.
You mentioned a birthday party that Emily put together for Riley, is that right?
That's correct.
When was that?
It was January 13th or 14th. I can't remember I think it was the 13th.
Okay, of 2024, just a couple
Yes,
months before the
2024, I'm
events that
sorry.
issue, right? Is that right?
Repeat.
Just a couple months before the events that issue here.
That's correct.
But this is after the move out and the arguments that happened at the time of the move out. Is that
Yes.
right? How'd you and Emily get along at the birthday party?
Fine.
Okay. Were you and Emily getting along okay during that time period?
Yes.
Okay. We heard, how'd the party go? Any issues?
No, not at all.
Okay. Who was there?
Let's see. Emily, Chris, Sheena, Ryan, Maddie, which is Ryan and Sheena's daughter, obviously Riley, Hillary, myself, my mom and dad, and Daryl. I think that was it.
Okay. We heard yesterday from Chris about a conversation that was that Emily had with you that he said got heated in some way. Do you remember that testimony yesterday?
I do.
And Chris testified that was about custody.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jury about what happened about custody during that conversation with Emily?
So Emily and I had arguments like brother and sister. She called me big brother. I called her little sis. But this was a little bit different because Hillary and Emily were best friends. And there was no denying that, along with, that's her big sister. Emily is her big sister, and, you know, she's going to take up for her sister no matter what, and I understand that. But the reason we were arguing is because I was wanting more time, and they didn't believe, neither Hillary or Emily believed that I should have more time.
Well, let's not get into what they believe. Just relate to the jury what happened during that phone call with you and Emily, okay, about the issue of custody.
Well, she said something to me that hurt my feelings. That, you know, her family was the only one who could take care of the baby, and that I was evil for wanting the baby for more than 2 days a week. And I took offense to that.
And was that the source of y'all's argument that day?
Yes,
Okay. Did y'all argue about any other issue that day?
I don't recall.
Okay. How'd y'all leave it at the end of the phone call?
I don't remember the whole conversation, so I can't say. I mean, it wasn't we were upset at each other.
Was this conversation you had with Emily about the custody issue different or similar to other times where you all had arguments about things involving Hillary?
Yes.
Different or similar?
Similar. Some were worse, some were better. I mean, it just depended on what we were talking about. But Emily would speak freely with me, and I would speak freely with her.
Okay.
Neither one of us would hold back.
And in trying to determine when this exact conversation, we've talked about the fact that you had access to your phone records as part of the discovery in this case, right? And we heard from the detective, for example, about running reports on Cellbrite where you can pull certain information out. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did you, with the assistance of my office, undertake an effort to locate the phone calls that showed up on your phone between your number and Emily's number?
We did.
Okay. And was a report of that created?
There was.
And did you review it?
I did.
And did it look accurate to the best of your knowledge as to when you remember there being phone contact between you and Emily?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I could approach the witness.
Yes, sir.
I want to hand you what we've marked as defendant's exhibit number 10. You see that document?
I do.
Does defendant's exhibit number 10 help refresh your recollection as to the date of the conversation with Emily that we were just talking about? And you're going to need to switch your glasses.
Yeah. Okay, now I can see it. Sorry. Could you repeat your question?
Does defendant's exhibit number 10 help refresh your recollection as to the exact date of this conversation with Emily about the custody issues?
Yes, it does.
And do you remember what that date was?
1/29/24.
So January 29th of 2024 would have been that conversation with Emily?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Thomas, I want to move forward now. Ultimately in February is when you actually filed the custody action, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And what was your understanding of when the first court date was going to be in that custody action?
March 18th, 2024.
So that would have been the day after the events that we're talking about here, right?
That is correct.
And what was was it your understanding you were going to be in court that morning or that afternoon sometime that day?
At some point in that day, yes.
Okay. Was it your understanding that Hillary was going to be there at the same time for this hearing with her representative?
Yes.
Okay. Did you understand that court date to be the start of the process or the end of the process or something else?
It was the start of the process.
Okay. Let's talk about March 17th then. You mentioned earlier on March the 15th, you picked up Riley, is that right?
I did.
Okay, and where were you all, so on Friday the 15th, were you all at your house on Bear Oak?
Yes,
Okay, and then you had her on Saturday the 16th, is that right?
I did.
Okay. At any point during that weekend, do you remember Hillary calling you at all or anything like that prior to the events that we're talking about here?
Not that I recall. I sent pictures of the baby to her.
And those are contained in the text chain that we saw earlier in the trial, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we'll talk about that in a moment. On Sunday the 17th, we've seen a text around 3 in the afternoon that you sent to Hillary about returning Riley. You remember that?
I do.
Okay. Why'd you send that text?
Because the time always changed. It was never when we planned, and that was what, I just wanted to make sure she knew that I was going to bring her back and what time to bring her back.
Okay. And at that point in time, when you sent that text at 3 o'clock, had you had any idea about what Hillary was doing that day?
I had no idea.
Okay. Prior to sending that text at 3 o'clock, where had you and Riley been that day?
We were actually with my mother and my aunt, who is in the assisted living. She needed some furniture moved, and I had a friend of mine come with me. I had Riley, so we went and moved the furniture for my aunt. Riley got to meet her great aunt for the first time, and she had a busy day, very busy day. She got to meet people. She didn't take a nap that day.
Okay, so you sent this text a little after 3. Did you, and the text chain shows the response coming around 6:30. Did you hear from Hillary between the text you sent and the next text we see in the text chain?
I did not.
Okay. What did you do during that time period?
So I was at home. Nick, a friend of mine, was cooking out.
What's Nick's full name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Nick Taylor.
Okay, and so did you go to Nick's house?
I did.
Who was with you?
Just Riley.
Okay, who was at Nick's house?
Oh, it was Nick Taylor, Cassie Taylor, Julie Kettenball, Josh Nipper, Donnie Massey, Sally Browning, and Christy Cates.
Okay. During the course of being there at the house and prior to receiving the text from Hillary at 6:30, did you receive information about what Hillary had been doing that day?
I didn't at that time. I didn't. When I received a text at 6:30, I didn't have my phone. It was with the baby bag, and we were playing with the baby and just trying to eat and get things together. And then I picked up my phone and I saw the text. I can think it was like 7:30, 7:40. I can't remember the exact time.
Okay,
but I saw the thing and I said, apparently Hillary wants the baby back now. And I made that comment.
When you were at Nick's, did you learn about where Hillary had been that day?
I did.
How did you learn that?
Two of the girls said, "Oh, she's been drinking all day at the bar."
Okay.
Objection as to what somebody else said, Your Honor. Move to strike.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the court permit that with the limiting instruction that it's admissible only to show the effect on him.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have you step into the jury room. Once again, please do not express an opinion, do not form an opinion. I'll bring you back out momentarily. Everyone else remains seated other than law enforcement. And Mr. Zesatars, before they leave, I think the sheriff is requiring, do you want them to
Yes,
keep the exhibit? Or you want-
they can pick that. Your Honor, I'm going to use that later, but I'll put the little section I'm going to use, I can put it on the screen.
So you want him to collect the
Yes, sir.
exhibit? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, you can collect those. Thank you, Sheriff. Let the record reflect the jury has left the courtroom. There was an objection, the court sustained it. I believe Mr. Zezatarsky, I'll hear you now. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd ask that, and maybe what I could do, Your Honor, is ask him sort of the follow-up, if I may. So, Dorian, you just mentioned that you'd been told, again, what were you told? One of the women at Nick's house told you what?
They saw some posts on Facebook
That told them what about Hillary's whereabouts?
that she was at the bar.
Okay.
And she had, I'm not going to make the assumption that she was drinking, but she was drinking.
Okay. Well, in your mind, did you make the assumption she was drinking?
Absolutely.
And why did you make that assumption?
Because Hillary won't go to a bar and not drink.
Okay. And in your experience, if Hillary went to a bar and started drinking, would it be 1 or 2 drinks or more than that?
More than that.
Okay. Did that cause you concern as to returning Riley?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that there were postings, and I'll do this right now, Your Honor, so we can cover everything. If I could approach him, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I'll hand you, Mr. Thomas, what has previously been identified during Hillary Lombardi's testimony as defense exhibit number 1. And Your Honor, I can approach with a copy of this for the court to make it easier, if I may.
Thank you.
What is defendant's exhibit 1, Dorian?
It's a picture of Tracy Lee Cole, Karen Murdoch Hughes, and Hillary.
Okay, and who are the other 2 ladies you mentioned?
Just friends of Hillary's.
Okay, and is this one of the Facebook documents that you were referencing that these women saw?
Yes.
And you'll see that the woman in the middle appears to have, Judge Gregory can't see it because his is black and white, but yours is color. She's got a green St. Patrick's Day hat on, is that right?
She does.
Okay. And which one is Hillary?
The lady on the left.
Okay. Your Honor, those would be my questions, and what I would tell Your Honor, I would ask.
Let me just take a chance to
Sure,
ask
yeah.
questions. Mr. Wilson and/or Ms. Mann, get any questions?
Mr. Thomas, who told you about the Facebook posts?
Who told me?
Yes, sir.
I believe it was Sally Browning.
I'm sorry?
I believe it was Sally Browning.
Do you know it was Sally Browning?
It was either Sally Browning or Julie Kettenball, one of those 2. They were sitting next to each other, but I can't remember who said it first.
Okay, so somebody told you, but you don't remember.
It was
exactly.
one of those 2 ladies.
Okay. But you didn't see those Facebook posts at that time?
No, I'm not on Facebook with her. We're not friends, we're blocked.
Okay. And what did they tell you?
That Hillary had been out drinking all day.
And I can't see the photo from where I'm at. I don't have a copy of it. Approach.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thomas, do you see Hillary holding any alcohol in that photograph?
I do not.
And at that time, you didn't have any knowledge of what Hillary was doing, correct?
I did not.
And so whichever of these 2 women told you that, they would have made that assumption, correct?
Yes, I guess you can say that.
Just as you made the assumption that if Hillary was at a bar, she was drinking, correct?
That's not an assumption.
Just as you testified that you assumed, correct?
You have the answer?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Those are my questions, Your Honor. We object to the entire line of questioning.
Any questions based on Mr. Wilson's question?
No, Your Honor.
Argument?
Your Honor, he received information. He just testified that based on that information, he formed a belief in his head about, I asked him whether that affected what he did with Riley. This is the explanation for why he didn't want to give Riley back to her that evening. Now, the state can argue about whether she was drunk or not. That's fine. But the jury needs to hear the explanation for his actions. And he's testifying that he was told these things. Based on what he was told, he took an action. That's not And the testimony, I would argue, Your Honor, is admissible for that purpose. It's not admissible to show whether or not she was drunk. It is admissible to show the actions that he took. Because throughout, Ms. Lombardi essentially argued, there's no reason for him not to give me the baby back. Well, he's explaining why. And he should be allowed to do that. Secondly, Your Honor, with respect to Defendant's Exhibit 1 itself, again, we didn't admit any evidence during Ms. Lombardi's testimony. She testified that this was a picture of her and her two friends in the bar that day. That's all we need to put it into evidence. Doesn't mean, again, the state can argue about the weight of that, the state can argue about what it proves or doesn't prove, but the foundation for the document was already laid during the state's case. And whether he saw it or not, I would argue to the court, doesn't matter.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz.
Your Honor, I mean, the hearsay statement has already been admitted to the jury, and so there's prejudice to the state, and I think there is insufficient indicia of reliability on that. He can't narrow down who made the statement, so the declarant is still unknown. And furthermore, the statement itself makes assumptions about something that the witness had no knowledge of. And I want to make sure I'm clear on this, because it's either we're saying, is the statement what led him to go look at Facebook later? He just said that we're not on Facebook. I didn't see it. We're blocked. So the only reason he would have this knowledge is based on hearsay within hearsay. Somebody, a declarant unknown, sees a picture on Facebook, makes an assumption, tells him, he then gets to come in and say, I made my decisions based on hearsay within hearsay. That's the basis of the state's objection. The photo itself probably comes in. Ms. Lombardi said that's me. And for what that's worth, it's a picture of her at a bar, or a picture of her in a St. Patrick's Day hat with two other women with a date stamp. That's what it shows. But in terms of what she was doing that he has no personal knowledge of, that is based on an unknown declarant's statement of a Facebook record that he himself did not have access to, that's hearsay within hearsay. The state objects to that testimony.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, again, it's not being admitted for the truth of the matter asserted. It's being admitted to show his action. It's no different, Your Honor, than if this were a case where somebody told Mr. Thomas, Hillary Lombardi's got a gun and is coming to your house. And he arms himself and he winds up shooting Hillary Lombardi, and she doesn't have a gun. That statement would not be admissible to show that Hillary Lombardi had a gun, but it would certainly be admissible as to Mr. Thomas's state of mind to explain his actions. And that's the purpose, I'd argue, Your Honor.
So noted. The court is going to indicate, for purpose of the record, Defense Exhibit 1, the picture shall be accepted into evidence. The court's going to indicate that Ms. Lombardi did testify that that's her in the picture, so that's fine. But respectfully, I agree with the district attorney. It is hearsay within hearsay. This witness has testified. He doesn't know or recall which person told him, and the statement is that Hillary Lombardi, was drinking all day or been out drinking all day at the bar. He doesn't know which person told him that. Furthermore, as far as the veracity or reliability of that statement or the trustworthiness of that statement, simply by showing at some point when the defendant sees the picture, the court would have a hard time telling this jury they can rely on statements of people that respectfully they're not here to testify as to them actually telling this defendant that, if in fact they told him that. Therefore, the statement as far as Hillary was out drinking at the bar all day is not going to be admitted into evidence. I'm going to note the defendant's objection to the court's ruling. However, respectfully, I do agree with the district attorney. I'm not going to allow that statement in evidence, but I will allow Defense Exhibit 1. If the defendant is actually going to introduce the photo, that'll be fine, but the court's not going to allow that statement.
I am, Your Honor. Well, let me then, in light of the court's ruling, ask for some guidance.
All right.
How am I permitted to have Mr. Thomas explain why he did not return Riley that evening? Because in our preparation, I will tell the court that the reason he didn't return Riley is because he was concerned that Hillary was drunk. So I just asked the court, can I ask him that direct question? Why did you not return Riley that night? And would he be permitted to answer in that manner?
As long as he doesn't mention anything about being told that Hillary was out at a bar drinking all day, I have no qualms with that, but he can't say the reason why I did not want to return Riley is because people told me that Hillary's out drinking all day. That won't be permissible.
But he can say, I had concerns that she was drunk. Am I permitted to elicit that testimony? Again, I'm trying to save time for the jury, Your Honor, so we're not in and out.
Well, he looked at, I guess later, a photo, and if in fact he did, let me finish respectfully. If in fact he did, Defense Exhibit 1 doesn't indicate there's any alcohol in the picture, number one. Number two, I believe when he was being questioned by the district attorney on voir dire, he mentioned that if she goes to a bar, she's going to drink. So if he's basing on his history of knowing her, going to bars and drinking and so forth, he has no information as to that on March the 17th of 2024, other than what he was told by two people, which I said that statement will not be admitted into evidence. But if you're simply going to ask him, why did you not return Riley? Mr. DA, I want to hear the state on this. If he's going to elicit that, well, my concern was she may be impaired or drunk, what's the state's position?
I mean, I think he can express his state of mind, but in terms of the hearsay coming in with an unknown declarant,
That issue's been resolved, that's not coming in.
I think he can testify to his state of mind.
Without objection, that'll be allowed, Mr. Zizzatarski. But respect, as I said, he can't testify as to, I was told that she was out drinking all day, and as a function of that, that's why I went ahead and said I wasn't going to return Riley.
Well, Your Honor, I will obviously comply with the court's ruling. What I would also ask is, can I ask him, based on what you were told that day, did you have a concern about Hillary being drunk? Without saying what he was told.
Mr. Wilson, let me hear you.
Can I ask another few follow-up questions?
That's fine. We're still on voir dire. This is argument, however, I'll allow for the state to reopen voir dire. Yes, sir.
Mr. Thomas, the photograph in Defense Exhibit 1 that we're talking about here, when did you first see that photograph?
It was about, I don't know, probably around 7 o'clock
That night?
that evening.
Okay. And you don't have access to Ms. Lombardi's Facebook?
I do not.
So somebody showed you that picture?
Yes.
Who showed you the picture?
Two people showed me the picture. I explained that.
Two different? Well, so I want to make sure I'm clear, because you didn't remember who told you. That's why I asked you who showed you the picture. Who showed you the picture?
Sally Browning and Julie Kettenball.
The two of them showed you the picture?
Yes.
Okay.
They both chimed in at the same time. I just couldn't remember which one said it first. That was the question that you asked.
Well, I asked you who told you that Hillary had been out drinking all day.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't
Well,
remember.
they said that too.
Both of them said it?
Mm-hmm.
That's your testimony now, that both of them said it?
Okay. So, when I started getting the text from Hillary, I said, well, I guess Hillary wants the baby back now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was everybody was like, oh, well, she's been at the bars all day. And I said, what do you mean?
Let me stop you there. You said everybody said that?
The girls that were in the room, which were Julie, Sally, Christy, Cass didn't say anything because she wasn't there, but the three women who were there, they all chimed in, oh yeah, we've seen it on Facebook. And then I said, what did you see? She says, she's been at the bars. I said, okay, she's been drinking, which I'm the one that made the assumption that she was drinking. But she's been at the bars all day.
So you see where I'm confused. You testified previously that it was Sally or I forget the other name, but one of two women told you that Hillary had been drinking. And then you just testified again that it was everyone in the room, and you mentioned 4 names, but then you said it was 3 of them. So who told you that Hillary had been out drinking all day?
Sally and Julie were the 2 that I was speaking with at that time.
Okay, you were speaking with them. Which of them told you she was drinking? If you don't know, the answer could be I don't know.
I understand that. I'm just trying to recall the situation in my head.
Okay. Do you recall?
I can't tell you which one said first, no.
Okay. But it's your testimony that both of those ladies showed you the Facebook photo sometime around 7 o'clock?
Yes,
So around 7 o'clock is when you saw that photograph of Hillary wearing a St. Patrick's Day hat?
Hillary's not wearing a St. Patrick's Day hat.
With people that are wearing a St. Patrick's Day hat. I don't have the photo in front of me.
I'm sorry. It's about 7 o'clock when I saw the photo, yes.
Okay. And then you assumed that she was drinking based on the photo?
I did.
All right. Those are my questions, John.
Mr. Zezatarsky, since questioning was reopened in voir dire or dire, I'll give you a chance if you have any questions.
Just one, Your Honor. Just to be clear, Dorian, you just had sort of the back and forth with Mr. Wilson. Both of those ladies told you she'd been out drinking all day at the bar. You're just not sure which one told you first?
That's correct.
Thank you. That's all, Your Honor.
Any questions based on that, Mr. Diaz?
And so I'm correct, those ladies were at Nick Taylor's house at a cookout, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did they tell you they had been out drinking with Hillary?
No,
Did they tell you they had seen her out drinking that day?
no.
Did they tell you what basis they had for thinking she was drinking?
They did not.
They just showed you a Facebook photo?
They're very good friend, or I'd say that very good acquaintances of Hillary, and they know her actions as well as I do.
But in terms of
But
what
not
I
on that
asked,
day.
they just showed you a Facebook photo?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Anything based on that, Mr. Zezatarsky?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Once again, Mr. Diaz, as I indicated, the statement that Hillary's out drinking all day at the bar, that's excluded. That's not coming into evidence. The court's noting the objection from the defense. But I believe Mr. Zezatarsky now wants to know how to proceed, and I think I had asked you what your position was.
I mean, I think it's clear now that at some point that night he saw this photograph and he formed an opinion that he was concerned that she was drinking. And I don't know that that's objectionable because it goes to his state of mind. But in terms of saying what people told him leading up to that, I think that's the hearsay concern. And the jury's already heard it, so I would ask for the court, in light of the ruling, to grant a motion to strike and tell him to disregard that statement.
Mr. Zezatarsky.
Well, Your Honor, obviously I'd object to that. I understand the court's ruling. What I would intend to do with Mr. Thomas when the jury comes back in is to say that we were talking about, you were at Nick Taylor's house at this cookout. You had received this text from Hillary. Based on what you were told by people there, did you have concerns about Hillary drinking? And based on those concerns, did you make a decision about what to do as to Riley? And then I would ask him, defense exhibit number 1, were you in fact shown that at some point that evening? And I would move to admit it. And then I would move on to what proceeded next in the text chain, which is the back and forth between them.
Well, once again, the statement as to Hillary was at the bar drinking all day, that's not going to come into evidence, respectfully. And now I have concerns based on the questioning by the district attorney that this witness, based on the people he was talking to, none of them could actually say that she was drinking either. They just made the assumption that she was drinking because they saw this picture of her, I guess it's at the bar, but the witness has not, or he at least conceded that they did not know if in fact she was drinking. There's an assumption that's being made by the people that told him that Hillary was drinking, and based on that assumption, they informed him And then he continued with the assumption that she was drinking at the bar all day. But the veracity of that statement does not exist. So the statement's not coming in. My concern now, I agree respectfully with the district attorney. He can talk about what he did, but he cannot talk about what other people told him to form his opinion as to why he decided not to return Riley. It simply, looking at this picture, he made the assumption she's at the bar, she's drinking, and that's why I'm not returning Riley. That's fine, but he can't say what someone else told him, particularly if those other people, they didn't have any knowledge in fact that she was drinking. So the court is not going to allow him to testify as to what some other people told him.
And I understand the court's ruling. My question, Your Honor, though, is a more limited one, which is, I'm trying to explain to the jury why he took the actions he did. And he took the actions he did for two reasons. Number one, based on what he was told, without getting into the subject, without getting into the substance of what he was told. Number one, what he was told, and then number two, the photograph. And what I'd like to ask him, and this is exactly how I put it, I would say, Mr. Thomas, based on what you were told by others at Nick's house, did you have concerns about Hillary being out drinking? And number two, did that affect your decision to return Riley that evening? And number three, did you see a photograph which also affected your decision?
The third question doesn't bother me, because that deals with his view of the photograph and him making the assumption that, okay, she's at a bar, she's drinking. The first question bothers me because of the fact he's saying not what they told him, but the state has asked the court not to allow that statement, in which I'm not going to. I think it's getting close to the line. Mr. Wilson, what is the state's position?
I think since they've already heard the statement, and then we followed up with a question of based on what people told you that's objectionable hearsay, I would object to that question being phrased that way. I think there's another way it could be phrased to seek the information being sought.
Yeah, I'm not going to allow for that question, the first question in reference to, based on what you were told, what did you do? And I think you actually said, Mrs. Zatarski, based on what you were told, did you make the assumption that she was drinking as a result? I'm not going to allow for that. What I'm going to do is this. It's 11:15. I'm going to give counsel a chance to think about that question. I'm going to bring the jury back in and send them on their break. And then we can discuss this a little bit further, and then we'll take our break. All right, Sheriff, we'll bring the jury in, please. Reference to what was said previously by Ms. Lombardi, the court is going to handle that this way. I'm not going to raise the issue again with this jury. They heard what they heard. I don't think it's necessary to raise that issue again.
Your Honor, I think what I'd actually asked for was I'd made a motion to strike. And
The motion to strike is noted respectfully. And I'm not going to address that issue. I'm just going to not touch that area. I'm going to leave it where it is, respectfully. All right. You ready for me to bring the jury back?
Madam Your Honor, could I retrieve that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. And Sheriff, you can bring the jury. Tarski, you may continue with your examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Thomas, when we broke, we were talking about you being at Nick Taylor's house and you had received a text from Hillary about returning Riley, okay? While you were at Nick's house, did you have concerns about Hillary being drunk?
Yes,
And based on those concerns, what did you decide with respect to returning Riley to Hillary that night?
I decided probably wouldn't be the best to take her home.
Okay, and did you convey that to Hillary in the text messages?
I did.
Your Honor, I'd ask to publish the state's 51, I believe it is, which is the text chain, and I'd like that published page 5, which was Mr. Thomas's response.
So that states Exhibit 51, Mr. Zezatarsky?
Yes, sir.
All right, any objection, Mr. Dion?
No, Your Honor.
All right, allowed, and Mr. Zezatarsky, you doing it from your,
I am, Your Honor.
you want the lights out?
No, sir. It'll be quick. Thank you. Mr. Thomas, I've got published to the jury page 5 of 27 of State's Exhibit 51, the text chain. The top right there, the green bubble, is that you or Hillary who's sending that text?
That is me.
Okay. And in that text, you state, I will bring her home in the morning before work. Do you see that?
Yes, I can.
And was that your intention, was that your intended course of action when you were at Nick's house?
Yes,
To return Riley the next day to Hillary to bring her by on the way to work? Is that right?
yes.
Now, the next morning was, or the next day, was something else also going to happen relating to you and Hillary and Riley?
Yes.
What was that?
We had a court, first appearance in court for our custody battle, which would be, but I didn't have a time for it yet. So my lawyer, Martin, said.
Well, don't tell us what Martin told you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you had the custody hearing the next day? Is that
I
right?
did.
And when you, so when you sent this text, you knew you were going to be in court the next day dealing with custody, right?
I did.
Okay. And I want to go down a little further in this exhibit. We've been through it multiple times, the back and forth between you and Ms. Lombardi. And this is in evidence on page 14. At 8:23, you told Ms. Lombardi, so stop freaking out and sleep it off, correct?
Yes,
And that was your text to her, is that right?
yes.
Okay. And during this time period, Mr. Thomas, when these texts are going on, do you recall whether or not Hillary was also trying to call you?
Yes,
And the jury's heard testimony about 21 calls from Hillary's phone to your phone. Do you recall that being during the time period that you all are doing these texts?
I do recall that.
Okay. And the records show that you didn't answer those calls, right?
That is correct.
Why did you not answer those calls?
Because I wanted everything in writing.
And we've also seen evidence during the course of the trial. Mr. Steinhoff, Darrell Steinhoff, testified about a phone conversation between you and him that took place this evening, correct?
That is correct.
And this state introduced some records that show that the call took place at 8:49 p.m. and lasted about 3.5 minutes. Is that accurate by your memory?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury about what you and Darrell talked about on that phone call?
So I called Daryl. Hillary had been nonstop calling me and texting and saying she's coming to the house after I told her not to. And I called Daryl and said, will you please call your daughter and tell her to stop? I said, I will bring the baby home in the morning before I go to work.
Okay, and that call, the earlier exhibit shows was 8:49. If you'll look up on the screen at State's Exhibit 51, the last text from Hillary to you that says on the way, what time is that?
8:58
So is that before or after your call with Darrell?
after.
Okay, we can take that down, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, that takes us forward, Mr. Thomas. We've had this back and forth with Hillary. You've told her, your last text to her was telling her not to come over, correct?
That's correct.
Now, at some point earlier in the text chain, you had said you can, okay if you come to and bring family. What did you mean by that?
She could, at the beginning of the text string or in the start of it, I did say, yes, if you can come get her if you bring a family member.
Why did you say a family member versus somebody else?
Because I didn't know who she would bring with her.
Okay, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You then, is it correct that you changed your mind and told her not to come at all?
I did.
And why did you change your mind?
Because of the constant phone calls, the phone call with the police officer that I spoke with, and what I considered being untruth from what she said, that the police officer said, that, and it's in the text string.
Okay, without telling us about what the police officer said to you, did the conversation you had with the police officer that's been referenced in the text string, again, cause you concerns about returning Riley to Hillary?
Absolutely.
And is that one of the reasons why you changed your mind in the text string about it's okay if you come, if you bring family only versus don't come at all?
Between the conversation and the constant phone calls.
Okay. And then you spoke with Darrell and asked him to tell Hillary not to come, right?
I did.
And after that happened, you got this text at 8:57 saying on the way, right?
Yes, sir.
After you got that text, what did you do?
Well, I knew she was on the way. I called Ashley to see how she was doing because she had,
And without getting into the specifics of the conversation with Ashley, did you, and Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could ask a leading question to avoid the issue of hearsay at this point?
Counsel approach.
Going into the specifics of what you and Ashley talked about, did you and Ashley discuss an event that went on in her life that day that you all were talking about?
we did.
Okay. And just for the record and for the jury, Ashley is who?
Ashley is my girlfriend.
Okay. And was she your girlfriend at this time in March of 2024?
She was.
Okay. So you're talking to Ashley, and we've seen the phone records. Do you remember when you hung up with Ashley in comparison to when Hillary and Emily arrived?
I hung up when they arrived.
Okay. Before Hillary and Emily arrived, did you retrieve a firearm?
I did.
Okay. Why did you retrieve a firearm?
Because I was scared about who she was going to bring with her.
At that point in time, on St. Patrick's Day of 2024, had Hillary threatened you previously?
Absolutely.
At one point in time, did you in fact record in your notes about a threat that Hillary had made to you?
I did.
And do your notes accurately reflect what Hillary told you about that threat?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to publish again Defense Exhibit 8 on the screen, which is the notes from the phone.
The objection?
There.
Allowed. And once again, Mr. Zezatarsky, if you want the lights off.
If we could, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And I'm going to load up, Your Honor, exactly where I'd like to ask Mr. Thomas about.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thomas, we're looking at defendant's exhibit number 8, which is in evidence. I direct your attention to the entry for 1231 in the middle of the page. Would you read that entry that you wrote there?
Spent on the night. We got in an argument and I left around 9:30 p.m. on the 1st. She threatened my life if I were to go after custody of the baby. Said her Hell's Angels friends would have me and have offered to assassinate me.
Okay. Tell the jury what happened between you and Hillary that night that caused you to write this note in the notes section of your phone.
So this was New Year's Eve, and we were watching the ball drop and doing all that, and then at that point we started talking about a woman that she felt like I was trying to see or trying to go out with, and then we got into an argument, and it was basically stating that we were just going back and forth about that, and I was like, no, I haven't, it's not about that, that didn't happen. And then I didn't understand why she kept on and on about it. But one of the things that happens when Hillary drinks is she repeats herself over and over again. So when she started repeating herself, I was getting upset. I was like, look, just please stop. Can we stop? And she said something about the baby. And I said, you know, this is exactly why we don't get along. And then I brought up something about taking the baby, you know, to my mom's house or something, and it led into this conversation, and it kind of came out of the blue. It kind of surprised me a little bit. I didn't understand why she was saying that to me at the time, but the more she elaborated on it, the more I was kind of concerned. I mean, if somebody tells you they're going to have you assassinated, it's kind of it's a big deal.
So you reference here, said her Hell's Angels friends would have offered to assassinate me. Did you know Hillary to know anybody in the Hell's Angels?
Yes.
Who is Terry Moore?
Terry Moore is a very good male friend of hers.
When she made threats about Hell's Angels friends and assassination, is that somebody who you were concerned about?
He, I don't know if I can say this in court.
Well, just to answer the question, is that something you were concerned about?
Absolutely.
Okay. And when Hillary made this threat on the 31st of December, is that something that you took seriously?
I did.
Mr. Thomas, you see the next note says you actually spent the night a couple nights after that. Did you all reconcile again after this fight?
I don't think it ever got good after that like it was the first 3 or 4 nights right after Christmas, but my thinking was, well, if I'm here, I don't have to worry about anything because I'm not going after custody. I have the child, or I'll be able to hang out with Riley and Hillary at the time.
Okay. When you decided on March the 17th, when Hillary was coming to your house to go get a firearm, did what's reflected on Defendant's Exhibit number 8 play into your mind?
That and many others.
All right. Well, Your Honor, we can take this down. Thank you.
Okay.
And now I'm going to show you, Mr. Thomas, if I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
What I've marked as Defendant's Exhibit, previously marked as Defendant's Exhibit 5. Since that text changed. Do you recognize defendant's exhibit number 5?
I do.
What is defendant's exhibit number 5?
It is a text message between Hillary and I.
Okay, do you remember this text message?
I do.
Now, in the course of preparing for this case, we've talked about the phone downloads that were produced in discovery. Was Hillary's phone one of the phones that was produced in discovery?
It was.
And did you and my office undertake a search of that phone for things that were around the time period of the events at issue in this case?
We did.
Defendant's exhibit number 5, was that in Hillary's phone?
It was.
Where was it?
It was in screenshots.
Okay. And do you remember the date that at least the phone showed this file being created?
January 24th.
Okay, now this says Dorian at the top. Do you remember actually having this text exchange with Hillary?
I do.
Your Honor, we move defendant's exhibit number 5 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Defense Exhibit 5 shall be accepted into evidence.
And Your Honor, again, I've got copies, if I could ask that it be published to the jury.
Any objections, Mr. Diaz?
No, Your Honor.
Allowed. And once again, thank you, Sheriff. Mr. Zezatarsky, do you want them to read Defense Exhibit 5 to themselves?
I would, Your Honor, and then I would like to ask Mr. Thomas a couple questions about it.
Thank you, sir. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, after you read and review Defense Exhibit 5, if you'll just raise your head so I'll know that you have completed your review.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Thomas, you mentioned that this file create date was January the 23rd. In reviewing that text back and forth between you and Ms. Hillary, you had Riley that weekend?
Yes.
And in fact, if we could publish Defendant's Exhibit 8 on the screen, Your Honor?
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Allowed. Do you want the lights off? And
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm just going to very quickly
All right.
show that date. Right there in the middle of the page, Mr. Thomas, on Defense Exhibit number 8, which is in evidence, there's an entry for January 22nd, 3 up from the bottom. It says, picked Riley up, stayed with me till the 24th. You see that?
I do.
This text would have taken place during that time period, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. In this text, that we're looking at, Defendant's Exhibit 5, you see halfway down the page, there's a bubble that says, "You keep that baby and you will regret it." Is that you or Hillary?
That's Hillary.
And during this period of time, what do you recall the conversation, the back and forth between you and Hillary was?
So the baby had COVID, and so did she at one point. And it was right before this, and I actually, during this, I took the baby to the doctor because I wanted to make sure she was okay. And because I own my own business, so if I get sick, it's on me. I don't have health insurance. I have to pay for out-of-pocket costs. So with that, I got Riley and I took her to the doctor, and then she was still testing positive, but she wasn't showing symptoms. So I just wanted to make sure she was okay. And this is a text going back and forth before that, and Hillary was, and it's not here, I don't know if I can say this or not, and she was complaining about having Riley too much because she was sick as well.
Okay, so when Hillary says to you, "You keep that baby and you will regret it," what was your understanding of what she was saying?
I mean, it was a straight threat. It's something that she used quite often, but the problem is it was preempted by the other threats.
And in fact, the next bubble below that, at 553, on the left side says, "Are you going to have me killed like you already threatened?" Who wrote that?
I did
And what were you referring to?
what she said on the 31st.
Were you referring to what we just discussed on Defendant's Exhibit number 8?
That is correct.
And of course, you wrote this on the 23rd of January, or on or about the 23rd of January, is that right?
Yes,
So 3 weeks or so later after that had taken place, is that right?
that's correct.
Okay. Now, the next bubble, again, on the left side, that's something you wrote, is that right?
That is.
And when you say, the only difference is I choose to let you have her more than 50% of the time because you were breastfeeding. Now that you aren't, I will pursue it. What did you mean by that?
So Hillary breastfed a good part of the first year, but she slowed down in November considerably, and we started introducing hard food and juice and milk, and like you do with a newborn, or which is one is growing up and nearing or over a year old.
And when you said, "Now that you aren't, I will pursue it," what were you referring to?
Custody.
Okay, so back on January 23rd, you all were talking about custody issues?
That's
Riley,
correct.
is that right? And then on the right side, Hillary responds, and then on the left side, you respond, and then is it correct that that's Hillary's response at the bottom? "You won't win this fight"?
Yes.
What did you understand that be a reference to?
The custody and in general, everything she's talking about.
Okay, Your Honor, we can collect Defendant's 5 at this point.
All right, thank you. And Sheriff, you will collect Defendant's Exhibit 5 from the jury. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
Mr. Thomas, and as State's Exhibit 49 shows, you did in fact pursue custody in the next month in February, correct?
Yes.
So is the chain of events that we just covered December 31st, Defendant's Exhibit 8, then January 23rd, Defendant's Exhibit number 5, and then in February is State's Exhibit 49, threat, and then the custody gets filed. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And going back to March the 17th, because that's what we were talking about, and I was sorry to jump around there. I was asking you why you went upstairs and retrieved a firearm, and you mentioned threats. Or is what we just went through the threats you were referring to?
That is correct.
Were there others?
There was, most of the time they were face to face or in exchange because she was hesitant to put it on paper most of the time.
And from your perspective, in your mind, did you believe these to be serious threats?
Absolutely.
Are these things that you were worried about?
Yes.
Did you understand Hillary to know people who could carry out threats like that?
Yes.
So when you retrieved the firearm, was it upstairs?
It was.
Okay. When you retrieved it, what did you do with it?
I stuck it on the set. I brought it downstairs and put it on the sofa table under the mirror right at the bottom of the stairs.
Okay. And why did you bring the gun downstairs after Hillary had told you she was on the way?
Because I was becoming very scared, or I felt threatened. I was very nervous.
Were you scared Hillary was going to do something to you that you would need a gun?
No, I wasn't scared Hillary was going to do anything. I was more scared of who she would bring with her or who would come with her.
And when you say who would come with her, were you referring to family or not family?
Not family.
Are you referring to the people referenced in Defendant's Exhibit 8 that she had threatened you with?
That is correct.
Yesterday, we showed the first of the two videos in your phone. And you remember I did a poor job of trying to stop it at one point to show the sort of what I'll call a sofa table up against the wall. And we saw a dark object eventually once I was able to get it right with the detective. Do you know what that dark object was?
I do.
What was it?
It was my firearm.
Okay. Is that where you put it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, how long, by your memory, before, well, first of all, when Hillary got there, Emily was with her. Did you know that Emily arrived with Hillary?
I didn't know who came with Hillary.
Okay. At some point, did you hear two voices outside?
Right before I opened the door, I heard two voices.
Okay. And did you recognize the second voice?
I did.
And did you know you knew who it was?
Yes,
And it was Emily?
it was.
Okay. Going back, before they arrived, how long before that, by your memory, was it when you went up and retrieved the firearm and came down and put it on the table there?
So I was on the phone with Ashley at the time. It was probably maybe 10 minutes before she arrived.
Okay. And when Hillary arrived with Emily, what happened then?
So there was no gentle knock on the door. It was quite disturbing. I mean, the house was being beat, the front door was being beat on. My dogs were going crazy because the door was being beat on like that. Then the windows.
Where were your dogs?
They were in a crate.
Okay. Go ahead.
So when she arrived, Hillary, like I said, there was no gentle knock on the door to start with. It was just bam, 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 bam. And then,
Could you hear Hillary outside?
yes, I could hear her screaming and hollering, and
Did you recognize Hillary's voice?
yes.
Okay. What kind of things do you remember initially that Hillary was saying outside of your house?
So basically, give me my baby. She kept repeating herself, give me my baby. You told me to come. And in the meantime, I'm saying, please leave my property. Please leave my property.
Okay. At some point, did you turn the video recorder on your phone on?
I did,
Why did you do that?
because I wanted to record the interaction of what was going on while she was at the house. I'd recorded just about every interaction in the last month when we would go back and forth. Even if I would go to her house, I'd still record it, but I never go inside.
Okay. Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to publish the first of the two videos in State's Exhibit 52 right now, and then ask Mr. Thomas some questions about what happened.
All right, any objections?
There.
All right, and you may publish that exhibit. Mr. Zazatars, you want the lights out?
I don't think so, Your Honor. I think we're okay, and it's not long.
All right.
Let me cue it up, if I may. Okay. Mr. Thomas, I'm going to play this through and then ask you some questions about what happened during the course of this, okay?
No, y'all need to leave and get off my property. You need to leave and get off my property. You need to leave and get off my property. I'm going to say, go ahead, hit it again. Come on, do it again. Come on. Come on, hit it again. Come on. No, I am a father. And you are...
Okay, we just heard a female voice say some things. Who was that?
That was Hillary.
Okay.
Leave my property. Bye.
Okay, and that was the table where the gun was, right?
Ugh, this is ridiculous. Go away. Did you?
Okay, Mr. Thomas, the phone shut off there. Do you know what happened
I think I accidentally hit it with my phone.
with your thumb?
Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause I have a pop socket on the back of my phone, so I hold it between my fingers and then my thumb can be around the
Okay.
phone.
And I noticed also in the video that you kind of went upstairs. Why were you going upstairs?
Because I pace.
Okay. And as we mentioned, that table you walked by towards the end of the video, that's where the firearm was placed. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, after the phone turned off, did you at some point realize the phone was off?
Almost immediately,
And what did you do when you realized that?
I started the recording again.
Okay. And Your Honor, I would ask to publish now the second portion of the video, if I may.
Any objection?
There you are.
Hello.
And Mr. Thomas will do the same thing. We'll play this through and then I'll ask you some questions about it.
Please don't do this. Please. Okay? You know that Riley's saying.
Get off my fucking property now. Get off my property.
Did you just
Off.
physically touch my sister?
Get off my
I'm on
property.
release. Dorian,
Oh shit. Jesus fucking Christ.
did you shoot my sister?
You shot her.
You shot her, you piece of shit! You shot my sister! You shot my sister! Oh my god, Dorian! Dorian! You shot my sister!
Okay, Mr. Thomas, at the beginning of that video, shortly after it, we hear the gun rack. Had you picked up the gun?
Yes.
Why had you picked up the gun?
Because I felt threatened.
Okay, you understood at that point that there were two women outside of your house, one of whom was Hillary and one of whom was Emily, right?
Yes.
In light of that, you knew them. Why did you feel threatened?
Because I didn't know if there was anybody else out there waiting.
Okay. Was it, were you concerned about Hillary and Emily, or were you concerned about somebody else?
I was concerned about who else might be there.
Okay. And when you picked up the gun, why did you rack it?
Because if you don't rack it, there's not a bullet in the chamber. And I was scared, and this was serious.
Okay. And then in the video, we see you place it appears that the phone is placed down because we can't see anymore. What did you do with the phone?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
In the video, after we hear the gun rack, it appears that we can't see anything anymore and the phone was placed down. What did you do with the phone?
I laid it on the ground or the floor.
Okay, so at that point, you didn't have the phone in your hand
I
anymore?
did not.
And what hand did you have the firearm in?
My right hand.
Okay, and are you right-handed or left-handed?
I am right-handed.
Are you ambidextrous, as Ms. Lombardi said?
No, sir.
So you have the gun in your right hand. We hear on the video at that point that you opened the door.
I did.
Why did you open the door?
Because I wanted them to stop screaming and raising Cain in my neighborhood at 9:30 on a Sunday evening.
Okay, and after you opened the door, what happened?
Emily was standing just outside the door to the right side of the door. Hillary was down the porch a little bit.
Hold on, let me interrupt you. To your right.
Emily was to my right.
Okay.
If this is the doorway,
Yep.
Emily was to my right.
Okay.
Hillary was to my left, coming, because she was down at the window still, kind of, but then coming back. She made the corner and immediately pushed in, came into the house, and I stopped her with my left hand.
Okay, let me interrupt you. When all of that happened, we've seen the photographs of the step up into your house from the porch. Were you in your house or had you stepped down onto the porch?
No, I was still in the house.
Okay, and when you said Hillary came to go past you and you used your left hand to stop her, which side of you did Hillary try to come past? Your right or your left?
She tried to come by on my left side the first time.
Okay, and when she did that, where was Emily?
Emily was still outside the door.
Okay. Now, we heard a female voice say words to the effect of on the video, "Are you putting hands on my sister?"
Yes,
Who said that?
Hillary.
Okay. And where was Hillary when she said that?
Coming down the porch towards the door.
And would she have been facing you and Emily?
She would have seen Emily, but not me yet.
Okay. And when that
Objection as
happened,
to what Hillary would have seen.
Oh, sustained.
when that happened, had you placed your hands on Emily in any way?
No, sir.
Had Emily placed her hands on you in any way?
No, sir.
Okay. When Hillary makes the statement, are you placing your hands, are you putting hands on my sister? Is that a phrase that you have heard Hillary use before?
A whole lot.
And in your experience, when Hillary used that phrase, was it accurate that the person she was directing it to was putting their hands on somebody?
No.
So there was no contact between you and Emily, correct?
No.
So when Hillary comes to you and you use your left hand, can you just demonstrate to the jury how you stopped her from entering the house?
I just pushed her back.
Okay.
She tried to go past me, and I stopped her and pushed her back.
Now, at that point, you have the firearm, correct?
I do.
And in your right hand, is that right?
That is correct.
Did you have your finger on the trigger?
No.
Where was your finger?
It was on the guard.
And why was your finger on the guard and not on the trigger?
Because I didn't feel an immediate danger, or I wasn't planning on firing the firearm.
Had you had some training on gun safety at that
I
point
have.
in your life? Tell the jury about that.
So, I grew up around firearms. My uncle is actually, I have two uncles. One was a great uncle, and the other one was an uncle. They were both firearms enthusiasts. Taught me how to shoot a gun at a young age. I also took a class in Florida for my concealed carry before I moved back to North Carolina. And, that was one of the things that they told you in that as well.
Okay, Your Honor, if I'd ask permission, if I could ask Mr. Thomas to stand up in front of the jury like I did with Ms. Lombardi the other day, and if we could demonstrate where he was versus where Ms. Lombardi was?
That's fine. Any objection?
No, Your
All right, I'm going to step down also. Mr. Thomas, I'm going to remind you, you're going to keep your voice up since you're not going to have the microphone beside you.
May I reposition, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Dorian, if you just stand right here. So,
Yes, sir. You may continue.
Thank you. So, where you're standing, Dorian, if you could jury is, you mentioned Hillary came towards you. Was she over here at that window?
Okay, so the doorway is basically, say this line in the carpet is the doorway. I had to open it, thumbs in the right hand, open the door with my left, backed up, because the door. And
That's the way
then
it's swung.
I probably moved forward maybe a foot or one step. Hillary was coming around, I couldn't see Hillary when I opened the door.
Okay.
She was still to the left-hand side.
But you could
behind
see
me.
Emily.
I could see Emily clearly standing right here.
Okay.
Hillary came around the corner, and that's when she made the comment.
Right.
Then she said something about being on the lease, and she tried to barge in the house. I stopped her. I stopped her kind of, but my hand was here, the right hand, the gun was by my side.
When that happened, did you point the gun at anybody?
No, I did not.
Okay. After she tried to go by you on your left side and you used your left arm to stop her, what happened next?
She came back much harder and tried to pass on this side.
Okay, so if I'm Hillary, am I coming this way?
You're actually probably maybe turned a little bit more like that.
Like that? Okay. And when she came towards your right side, what did she do?
She basically was a lot closer than you are right now, but as she was coming up, she grabbed my right hand and the firearm.
Okay.
And
Now,
like I said,
I interrupt you. When she grabbed the firearm in your right hand, did she use one hand, two hands? Could you feel?
I couldn't tell how many, I couldn't tell how, I just,
And
Right.
why couldn't you tell how many?
because she was right here.
So let me, again, is this a fair approximation of how close you all were?
Yes,
And for the record, that's 6 inches to a foot?
possibly.
Okay. So when she comes up on you and grabs at the firearm, what happened then?
So when she came, I braced myself with my right. When she came, I had to turn kind of sideways. She was right here. When she grabbed the hand and gun, which is basically the same, my finger was never on the trigger, it was still on the guard. When she did that, the gun discharged.
Is that when the gun discharged? Could you tell the jury and show with your hand where, as best you can approximate, where the gun was when it discharged?
It had to be somewhere right here, like, because this was, I was trying, like, it was down by my side.
Okay.
Like, somewhere in this area.
And
She was so close, I couldn't,
Okay.
I can just judge it.
Okay, and when it discharged, when the gun discharged, you mentioned, were Hillary's hands grabbing the gun in your hands?
Yes.
And do you ever remember your finger coming off the guard and hitting the trigger?
No.
Okay. When the gun discharged, did Hillary at that point enter the house?
She, honestly, when the gun discharged, it scared me so bad because I wasn't expecting it, I dropped it. I dropped the gun fell to the floor. And she started screaming, I started screaming back, and then I look up and Emily's laying on her back and I went straight outside. I didn't think about anything else at that point to find out what was wrong with Emily.
Okay. Now, do you ever remember Hillary trying to go up the stairs in your house?
No.
Did you ever grab Hillary and pull her back down the stairs? Okay, and when she tried to go by you into the house and grabbed at the gun, you all were this close together? Was it
Yes.
sort of a struggle over the gun?
Yes.
That's all I need right now, Your Honor. I can resume the witness stand.
Yes. Mr. Zezatarsky, you are at the lunch hour. I'll give you another few minutes if you need to, because I know we're going to come back.
Your Honor, it's probably a good place as any. There's not a good sort of breaking point right there.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we won't take our lunch break. We're going to come back at 2 o'clock. You know what I'm going to say, and I'm going to continue to say it, as I've said since Monday of last week. Please, do not express an opinion. Do not form an opinion. Do not discuss the case. Do not do any research. Don't go to any location that's been mentioned. As I told you, if you were the state of North Carolina and or the defendant, you would want juries that were fair and impartial to you. I've told you also, I've noticed you've been engaged, you've been alert, and I appreciate that. We are getting the work done, but there's still more work to do. So please abide by that rule. We'll come back at 2 o'clock. Everyone else remain seated other than law enforcement while the jury leaves the courtroom. If you'll leave your pens and pads in your chairs, have a fantastic lunch. We'll see you at 2 o'clock.
Ma'am, please remain seated.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sheriff. Let the record reflect the jury has left the courtroom. Anything from the state?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, Sheriff, we're good until 2 o'clock.
Court will recess to 2 p.m.
Jury is back in the courtroom. If you recall this morning, I said I wouldn't give you a forecast of the afternoon. Now I'll give you a forecast. We will continue with our work. We're going to take our break at 3:30, possibly 3:45, and we'll return promptly and continue with our work. So I wanted to at least give you that forecast. All right. This witness remains with the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Thomas, when we broke for lunch, we were talking about the moment when the gun discharged. And you had said about Hillary coming over from the window from your left and then walking over towards the doorway where you were coming towards you, and that you warded her off with your arm. At the moment you warded her off with your arm, did that create any physical separation between the two of you?
Only for a split second.
Okay. And was it at that point then that she went towards your hand that had the gun in it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when that happened, you were standing, I believe you demonstrated you were standing in the doorway, is that right?
Really close to it.
Okay. You were still up on that, up on the ledge versus down on the porch?
That's correct.
How wide is that doorway?
36 inches.
And the way you were standing, would it be physically possible for Hillary to get past you without making physical contact with you?
No.
Tell the jury, in your experience, about Hillary's size and strength at the time this occurred in March of 2024.
She's 5'6". I'm not sure on the weight. I'm not going to say anything about it. But she was pretty strong. She played hockey as a younger adult or late teenager, early adult. But she was quite she was, I don't know the word to use. She wasn't a weakling.
Okay, and you said you're about 6'2", I think you said this morning. She's about 5'6", so much shorter than you.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you testified this morning about why you went to get the firearm and you said you were scared, what exactly were you scared of?
Of anyone else other than them being there.
And what were you scared of anyone else doing?
Harming me, coming into my home.
Now, Dorian, you said when the gun discharged, you dropped it. Is that right?
I did.
Now, have you listened, you obviously have listened to the recording of when this happened that was on your phone, right?
Yes.
Did you hear during that recording where the gun dropped?
You mean during when it was on? I heard the gun hit the floor.
You could hear that in the recording.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you testified this morning that after the gun discharged and you dropped it, you went over to Emily, right?
I stepped outside of the house. That was the first time I stepped outside, but I immediately went out to check on Emily.
Okay. And when you went out to check on Emily, we saw at the end of the second video, that was you in the picture, sort of over Emily, right?
That is correct.
What were you doing at that point?
Looking for any signs of injury?
Did you see any?
No.
Okay. What happened next?
Probably within about 20 or 30 seconds, my next door neighbor was on the porch. And I said, and during that meantime, I'm looking around, looking all over the body for a wound of some kind or blood or something to let us know that she was shot.
Was Emily responsive at all as you and the neighbor were doing this?
She was turning her head back and forth and her eyes were moving and she was mumbling but not speaking.
And which neighbor was this?
This was Jeff White.
Okay. What happened after that?
So I saw Hillary moving around inside the house and she bent down to pick up something. So at that moment, I said, Jeff, try to figure out what's going on. I got up, went back into the house, grabbed the firearm, unloaded it, dropped the clip, took the round out of the chamber, set it on the back of the couch. As I was doing that, I was trying to come back outside and Hillary was trying to come back in and I just moved her out and closed the door to the house. That way the firearm was secure.
Let me interrupt you.
I'm sorry.
You said that you went in and grabbed the firearm and disarmed it. Why did you do that?
Because I didn't know if Hillary was going to pick up the gun and try to harm me or anybody else. She was very upset.
And when you've seen the photograph that's been put in evidence by the state of where the firearm and the clip and the one bullet are kind of sitting there on top of the couch, you saw that earlier in the state's case, correct?
I did.
Who put those items there?
I did.
As far as you can remember, the photo that's in the state's evidence, that's how you left the firearm and the clip and the bullet that
Yes.
day? Okay. Now, did other neighbors, shortly after the discharge of the firearm, did other neighbors show up as well?
Yes.
And who were they?
Tisha White, and I didn't know the neighbor across the street, but from the statements, is it Jessica?
Objection if you didn't know her.
Well, he hadn't said what she said, and he can't say what she said, but he can say who showed up. You can answer the question as to who showed up.
A neighbor from across the street you didn't know?
That's correct.
Was it a male or a female?
It's a female, and her husband came behind as far as,
Okay.
I'm not sure of the time frame.
Okay. When they showed up, what was Hillary doing?
Hillary was yelling and screaming at everybody, threatening to fight the neighbor across the street, trying to fight me, everybody there.
Did you ever prevent Hillary from rendering aid to Emily?
Absolutely not.
Did you ever see, understanding you were doing many things, did you ever see Hillary trying to render aid to him?
The only thing I saw Hillary doing was she was trying to get to her sister, but she wasn't trying to render aid. I think she was, I don't know what she was doing. I just was worried about what was going on with Emily, so we were focused, or I was focused on that at that moment.
When you and Mr. White were checking on Emily, at that point in time, did you see any evidence of her being hit by the gunshot?
No, sir.
Eventually, did you call 911?
I did,
Why'd you do that?
because she was unresponsive.
Okay, and the timestamps show that that's roughly a minute and some odd seconds after the end of the second recording. Would that be in comport with your memory? of what
That's
happened?
accurate.
I'm gonna, Your Honor, the 911 calls are State's Exhibit 1. I'd like to publish those again if I could and ask Mr. Thomas some questions about what we hear happening.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Allow.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Thomas, I'm going to play the first of the 3 calls that are on State's Exhibit 1 and ask you some questions.
Johnston County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
151 Barrel Drive.
Do you need police, fire, or EMS?
I don't know.
I'm sorry?
Who was that yelling, the female voice?
It was Hillary.
Yeah, we need police and possibly, there was an accidental gunfire.
Okay, is someone injured?
Well, she's acting like it, but I don't see any blood. I don't see anything. There's no blood.
Bill, you shot her!
Where?
You shot my sister! Dorian Thomas shot my sister!
There's no blood.
What?
What?
You stupid fuck, she's seizing it! You shot her!
There's no blood.
Shut the fuck up,
I think
Dorian!
the noise got her.
Okay, hang on just a second for this.
And when you said, that was you that said, I think the noise got her, Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Was that your belief at that point in time?
I thought she was stunned or she fell back and hit her head, but nowhere could we find a wound at all.
And when you say we, who was looking for the wound?
Myself and Jeff White.
What's wrong with you?
Get away from me. Back up. Back up. Honey.
Sheriff's
honey,
office.
Wake up.
Okay, we heard you say, get away from me, back up. Who were you talking to?
Hillary.
What was she doing?
Trying to, I don't know if she was trying to get to Emily or trying to, she was very aggressive on the scene. And so, I
We
don't know.
heard you say, honey, wake up, wake up. Who were you talking
I was
to?
talking to Emily.
Okay, and where were you physically when all of this we just heard was going on?
I was on the left side of Emily. Emily was laying at an angle.
Like we
And-
seen in the pictures?
Correct.
Okay, so you were to her, if you were looking
It
at
would
the
have been her
pictures,
right.
You're her right in the picture, you're on the left.
That's correct.
Okay.
Where I was at in the into the video.
Okay, let's go to the second call.
Honey.
Sheriff's
honey,
office.
Wake up. Hey, you're not here. You're not here.
Sheriff's.
When you were saying, honey, wake up, is that, who were you talking to there?
Emily.
Why would you even come to the door with a gun?
Because
I'm
you're
the
crazy.
mother of your child!
Because you're crazy.
You want my daughter?
Because you tried to bust in my house.
I'm on the lease! It's my house!
Not anymore.
My daughter! You shot my fucking sister!
Shut up!
Dorian Thomas shot my sister!
There's nobody shot.
When you said there's nobody shot, was that your understanding at that point?
At that point in time, yes.
Shut
Thank
fuck
you.
You good?
Who said that?
I couldn't, I think, no, I know it was the lady from across the street.
Okay, was that between Hillary and the lady across the street?
Yes.
Get off my
He
property.
just shot my sister!
She's got
He
to go.
shot my sister! My sister's dying right there! He shot my sister! Fuck you!
Who's Hillary talking to there?
The neighbor.
I'm gonna shut the fuck up. It's my house!
It is not your house.
He shot my sister! Fuck off!
Who said this is my house?
Hillary.
When's the last time she had been there?
December 10th.
Okay. Had she paid anything towards the rent between December 10th and the
Objection.
time she made that statement?
It's repetitive, he's already answered this question.
So noted. Overruled. Answer that question.
No, sir.
Did she have any belongings in there at the time she made that statement?
No, sir.
My sister was just shot! Fuck off! Go!
Hey, stop.
Go!
Sit the fuck down.
Nosy bitch!
We heard you say something, were you speaking to Emily or to Hillary?
That wasn't me. That was Jeff White talking to Hillary.
Okay.
Emily.
Why are you still holding a gun?
Because I'm picking it up to move it.
Yeah, you shot my sister with a 9mm?
Okay, you heard that exchange. You testified earlier about picking the gun up and unloading it.
Yes.
Is that the reference to what you described?
Correct.
Crazy fuck shot my sister.
Where's she got it?
I don't know.
She's not shot. She's not shot.
Yes, she is. No blood, dude.
The other male voice that we heard, who was that?
That is Jeff White.
There's no blood. She didn't get. You didn't hear the gun go off? Why are you putting your hands on me?
Because you're trying to go in my
No,
house.
I'm gonna get my daughter.
No, you're not.
You haven't leave in 2 months because you refused to pay.
What's the conversation they're referring to?
That's when I was working back out of the house to come back out onto the porch from unloading the firearm, and then I came back and closed the door.
You're going to jail for shooting a gun. Don't touch me.
Don't touch me. You touched me first. You're the one that grabbed my hand with the gun in it and made it go off.
You're fucking firing a shot. You have borderline personality disorder that you refuse to fucking do it.
You need to get her away from me.
You and your cocaine. Keep shorting dope.
Tell you what, let's go get a drug test right now.
Keep shorting
Let's
dope.
get a drug test
Keep
now.
shorting dope.
You fucking whore.
You just shot a fucking woman. Shoot anybody.
She's fine.
No, she's not.
Okay, then sit down. Sit down.
What is that your sister?
Who's that male there?
That's Jeff as well.
Jeff White?
Is knocking at the door trying to get my daughter. He refuses to take my daughter. Refuses.
No, I'm not refusing
For
anything.
one time and won't give her back.
No, there's no blood anywhere.
No, you're going to jail. For what? Goodbye.
Because you pulled the trigger on my gun that was in my
I
hand?
pulled no trigger.
Really?
You're insane.
Yeah, I'm the one that's here fucking screaming.
You can't do that. How would I even pull this thing?
Because you grabbed my hand with the gun in it.
Stop. What the fuck did you do?
Oh, my.
Is that you and Hillary talking back and forth to each other?
Yes, it is.
Are you still there?
Yeah, so, okay, sir, can you answer some questions for me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, what kind of gun is involved?
It's my gun. It's a 40 caliber, but there's nobody got shot. My ex-fiance tried to force her way in my home to get my daughter because she's been drunk all day, but she doesn't live here anymore.
When you said because she'd been drunk all day, was that your understanding at that point in time?
No, I smelled it while she was there at this point.
That would take her home in the morning. She already called the police officers. She already called the police in Clayton. They called me, and I had every right to keep her. There's no parenting plan in place. And anyway, she was beating on the windows, beating on the doors, and I grabbed my gun because she's crazy. And when I was standing there, she grabbed my hand with the
And
gun.
you said this is your ex?
Yes,
That
my ex.
came over? Okay,
She used to live here.
okay.
But the gun went off. It didn't hit her. She's not hit.
Again, at this point in time, was that accurate as to your understanding?
At that point in time, yes.
Sister grabbed my hand and it pulled the trigger. She's not bleeding.
Yes.
There's no shot.
We understand. Check her out.
She was beating on, I got it all on recording. She was beating on the windows, beating on the doors, trying to,
When you say you got it all on the recording, what are you referring to?
The video of my phone that was when I turned it on when she arrived.
Is that the video that the jury seen?
Both of them, yes.
when I told her not, okay. Okay.
That's not what we need to worry about right now. We need to worry over right now.
Because she's an idiot. Look. She's just stunned.
Yeah, probably.
You're damn right. You shouldn't have fucking tried to come in my house and grab my hand.
My house.
No, it's not. You have a new lease. You do not. It does not matter.
I'm on the lease.
No, it doesn't matter.
And you have
You
my
have
daughter in there, and you haven't seen her in 2 months. And no
2 months.
Fair to say that's you and Hillary arguing there?
Yes.
On crack.
You're on crack. You're the one going to a door with 2 women shooting.
Yeah, because you were beating on the door and you've been multiply abusive in the past.
Everything's okay.
There's no shot anywhere.
Did you call the
Yes,
police?
yes,
Somebody?
yes.
Okay.
Who's that talking, that male?
I think that was,
Well, objection to what he thinks.
okay.
So sustain if he doesn't know.
Was it Jeff White or somebody different?
It was either Jeff White or the next door neighbor's husband.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
She called the cops on me earlier because I kept my daughter tonight because the door was locked to 2 minutes. And your point? You were beating on the door. You were kicking. I'm insane. You're the one that's here if you were told not to come, and you called the cops and he told you not to come. Exactly. There you go.
Don't keep throwing blame and worry about your sister, okay?
Yeah. All she wants to do is talk shit.
Neither will you. I'm not taking sides.
We don't deal with them every day.
I'm taking sides.
Who's that male that we hear there?
That's Jeff White.
Not taking.
Okay, where's the gun at? Because I just need to make sure that the gun is put up.
The gun is put away. It's unloaded. Really?
Okay.
I'm not. There's 14 people. Quit lying, Hillary. Quit lying. How about you fuck off? Shit, they live here. He was just standing over. The cops need to come get her and bring her out of here. I've got it on recording where she was kicking on the windows and kicking on the doors, and that's what freaked me out because she is crazy and she has beat me before. This is ridiculous.
I'm not worried about you or him.
Are the police on the way?
You should be worried about her.
Yeah, so do you need EMS?
She is, I don't know if she's shocked. She's not responsive. Check her pulse.
She's got a pulse. She's breathing.
Move. Stop. Move.
She's moving. Her chest is going down.
No, Mr. White. Dorian.
Stop.
What happened? Dorian. This is yours. Dorian.
You gotta listen. We gotta be
Y'all want to be in my family. Next door you get beat hammered. And he's not even saying anything. And you come up here fucking shit me. Oh, my sister's dying.
Emily.
We heard you say Emily twice. What were you doing at that point?
Trying to see if she would respond.
Did she have,
No, she's a lawyer and a nurse.
did she have anything in her mouth?
He shot her.
I did not.
I don't.
Was that you that said, do you have anything, and did she have anything in her mouth?
Yes.
What are you referring to there?
So I was talking back and forth with Jeff, and I asked Hillary, was she chewing on anything or eating or anything when she came to the door, because I thought maybe she was choking on something, like something was stuck in her throat. So that's why I said that.
I don't know what happened.
Okay, is the female unresponsive?
Yes, get them ambulance here.
Yes, ma'am.
Stop.
At this point in time, was that you that said get an ambulance here?
Yes.
Do you remember, did it appear to you that Emily's condition had changed in any appreciable way, sort of at the time of this time in the call?
We still hadn't found a wound, but there was obviously something wrong.
Stop talking.
Okay, sir, listen to me. I'm going to transfer you back to EMS so EMS can speak with you and ask you some questions if she's unresponsive, okay? All right, hold on just a second. Hey, can somebody...
Okay, now we'll go to the third portion of the 911.
Communications.
We have a female here who's
Okay, now, you're not on the phone anymore. Do you remember who had the phone at this point?
I think that's a different 911 call.
Okay, you think that that was not on your phone, but on a different phone?
I don't think so, because I don't remember. I remember hearing his voice, but
okay.
I didn't hand my phone to anybody.
Okay. Tell me exactly what happened.
I don't
Come on, Emily.
Confirm
We're
it.
neighbors got here. They're trying to do CPR on her. They're doing.
Well, hold on. Is she breathing?
No.
Okay. And are you guys at 151 Bear Oak Drive?
151 Barrel Drive, yeah.
Okay. Has she been shot?
No.
Okay, hold on one second. Just confirming, we're having them get en route to 151 Barrow Drive. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 151 Barrel Drive.
Hold on one second.
Mr. Thomas, at this point in the call, you just said no when they asked if she'd been shot. I gather you all still hadn't discovered the wound.
No, we hadn't.
Was it, again, compared to earlier in the calls, was Emily's condition the same or was it different?
She wasn't breathing at this point.
Because never mind, it don't matter. I got it on video, it's okay. I did not. Come on, Emily. Come on.
Was that you?
Yes.
Okay. What were you doing there?
Trying to get something to her to respond.
If there is a defibrillator available, so someone to get it now, tell me when you have it, okay?
Come on, Emily.
Do you hear me?
What?
I hear the siren.
We hear siren.
How old are they? How old are they?
Oh, shit. There's blood. There's blood.
What happened at that point, Dorian?
Because we started performing CPR, I guess it pushed blood out of the wound. We finally found it.
Okay, so did she get shot?
Apparently. Why would you grab me and try to force your way in?
Okay.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
All right. Hello? Hello? Hello, is anybody there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, I need somebody to talk to me. What's going on?
We just heard a male voice say, "Put your hands up." Who was that?
Wilson Mills police officer.
The one that we saw testify earlier in the trial?
Yep.
Guns in the hallway.
I don't give a shit. Put your hands up, you. Right hand up. I'm on your right hand up right now.
Somebody needs to.
The guy
We're
that's
trying
over
to do
there shot
CPR.
her. He shot her. Grab him.
Where is he? I'm right here. Me. I'm the one that shot her. It's my home. Yeah.
We just heard Hillary say he's the one who shot her, and then you said in response, "I'm the one who shot her." What did you mean by that?
Well, at the time, it's just the gun was in my hand when it went off. And what I wanted to do was, I was more concerned about trying to help Emily, but he stopped everybody from doing everything. So I was trying to just get off the porch, get down and do exactly what he said to, so somebody would help.
When the officer that we heard talk on here, how did he appear to you when he came up on the scene?
I feel like he was scared.
Get the fuck up right now. Get down on the ground. Stop moving. Get down.
That's what happens when you shoot somebody.
On your, right now, on your stomach. Don't say
Yeah, I put me here earlier. Not.
Put your hands behind your back right now. Put your hands behind your back. Do not move.
Save my sister, please. The agent's fucking with you. Just get my sister, please.
This lady
gonna die.
is shot.
Okay, that's the end of the 911 call, Mr. Thomas. At the time that the Wilson Mills police officer arrived, what were you doing?
Performing CPR.
And was anybody assisting you in that regard?
Tisha.
After the Wilson Mills police officer arrived, and we heard the commands that he gave, what did you do?
Exactly what he told me to do.
Okay, and where did you wind up as a result of complying with his commands?
On my stomach, on the ground, about 10 feet off the porch.
Okay. At that point, were you face up or face down?
Face down?
Okay. Could you see what was going on the porch at that point?
No.
And at some point, were you handcuffed?
I was.
And what happened from there? Where did the officers take you to?
They handcuffed me and then took me up to the street in front of the house, and that's where I sat.
Okay. At some point, were you moved from the street into a police vehicle?
I was.
How long between the time that the Wilson Mills officer arrived was it until the time when you were driven away from the scene in the police vehicle?
I'd say about 2.5 hours.
Okay. We heard Deputy Whitley testify earlier in the case that he was the officer who drove you. You remember that testimony?
I do.
Was he in fact the one who drove you?
Yes.
And Deputy Whitley testified that you made several spontaneous statements to him about what had happened. Do you remember making those statements?
I do.
Were they accurate?
They were.
We heard during the 911 call a number of times you described what happened in terms of it, using the word accident and saying the words, she grabbed the gun. Is that accurate?
That is.
Now, after we heard Deputy Whitley testify that during the ride from the scene to the sheriff's office that you were upset and crying hysterically. Do you remember that?
I do.
Why were you upset?
Because Emily just died.
We heard Deputy Whitley talk about the fact that you talked about getting tests as to Hillary. Do you remember that?
I do.
Why did you ask the officers to give GSR and a tox test to Hillary?
Because she grabbed the gun.
Now, when you got to the sheriff's office, you had interaction with Detective Dupree, right?
I did.
And earlier in the trial, we saw some interaction on video between you and him. You remember that testimony?
Yes.
Your Honor, again, I'd ask to, this is State's Exhibit 75. I'd ask if we could publish that again so that I could ask Mr. Thomas about some statements he made during that video.
Any objection?
They are.
All right, yes, you may publish State's Exhibit 75. And Mr. Zatarski, do you want the lights on?
I don't think it's necessary, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Zostar, do you have access to that clip?
I think so. Let me make sure this is it. Yeah, I do. Your Honor, just to make sure I'm playing the same thing, could I consult with Mr. Wilson for 1 second?
two people can come to my house, try to kick in the windows, beat on the doors. I tell them to leave. They don't listen. They keep doing it, and they start screaming and hollering in my damn neighborhood. I open the door. I have my gun in my hand, and I tell them to leave. And then Hillary comes barging in the door, tries to pass me, grabs the gun, like tries to, oh, Jesus Christ. And the gun goes off, and she gets to just be wherever. After I text messages and told her not to come to the house. I got the baby, everything's fine. She's acting erratic, called me like 30 fucking times. I told her, I said, I'll bring her home in the morning. She's already asleep. I knew she'd be at the bar today drinking. I know how she gets when she's drunk. That's why we're not together. Because she is insane.
When you said drinking's the reason we're not together, what did you mean by that?
The way she acts when she drinks. It's one of the reasons for sure. God. Look at Emily.
Were you upset there because of what had happened to Emily, Dorian?
Yes.
We can take that down, Your Honor. Thank you. Dorian, a couple questions going back to a couple other things. You testified earlier about your conversation with Daryl on the way when you were doing this text back and forth with Hillary. And we heard Daryl testify earlier. You remember Daryl testified about this conversation that he heard parts of, but that he said related to the phrase, the castle doctrine. You remember his testimony about that?
I do.
You remember him testifying about that he would have heard parts of a conversation between you and Ryan, is that right?
Yes.
Do you remember the conversation that Daryl's referring to?
I do not.
Okay. Prior to all of this happening, did you know the phrase castle doctrine?
No. I didn't know it until I went to jail.
Now, Mr. Thomas, on the night this happened, we just went through that you told 911, you told the neighbors, you told Hillary, you told Deputy Whitley, and you told the detective sitting next to me that this was an accident and Hillary had grabbed the gun. Is that what happened?
Yes, sir.
Did you intend for Emily to be shot?
Absolutely not.
Did you intend that firearm discharged?
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. Those are all the questions I have.
I thank you, Mr. Zezafar. Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thomas, I'm going to ask you some questions. If there's anything I ask you that you don't understand or need me to repeat, please just let me know, okay?
Sir.
We're going to go back and kind of cover, I hope, chronologically from the beginning of this. And we're going to pick up a little bit after the relationship starts going south. And you said it was the weekend of December 9th, 10th of 2023 that Hillary was moving stuff out of 151 Barrow, correct?
That's correct.
And you were away from that house during that weekend, correct?
I was.
And Riley was with Hillary and or her family that weekend, correct?
Yes.
And you stated on direct examination that the reason you went over there was because you wanted to see Riley. Is that right?
I wanted to know where Riley was during this event, which I was They were with Ryan and Sheena.
Okay. So my question was, you stated on direct that you wanted to go over there to see Riley, correct?
That's correct.
In fact, isn't it true that you had the opportunity to take Riley that weekend while Hillary was going to move out? And you couldn't or didn't?
I did not.
Isn't it also true that Hillary had some male friends helping her move? And you were upset about that?
I wasn't upset about her having male friends helping her move.
Okay. You heard Sheena testify, Sheena Steinhoff?
Mm-hmm.
And you recall Sheena saying that when you arrived, you appeared agitated already?
It's a bad situation.
My question was, do you recall Sheena saying that when you arrived, you were already agitated?
I recall her saying that, yes.
Your testimony was that the reason you went there was just to see Riley on December 10th, correct?
Yes, I did go there to see Riley.
And that made you agitated?
No, I was
Thank
agitated.
you, that was my question.
Objection, Your Honor. I'd ask that he be allowed to finish his answer.
Finish your answers.
I was agitated once I walked into the home.
So if Sheena said that you were agitated when you got there, before you entered the home, then Sheena's testimony would not be correct.
I don't remember being agitated when I got out of the truck.
You weren't agitated, or you don't remember being agitated?
I had no reason to be agitated until I went in the home.
Okay. So if Sheena said that you were agitated when you arrived, before you went in the home, is Sheena not telling the truth?
Her perception of me being agitated is her perception.
So if she said that you were agitated, that could be true, because she thought you were agitated. Is that your testimony?
Yes, that's what I just answered.
Okay. In any event, you went in the house and you were agitated at that point, correct?
I was when I walked in the home, yes.
And that's when you had, I believe, let's see how we characterized it. You got upset and you talked with Hillary at that point, I believe is what you said on direct examination. Is that right?
I believe so.
Well, isn't it true that you yelled?
There was some heated exchange between the both of us.
So you yelled?
Possibly, yes.
Well, let's take a break for just a minute. I mean, the difference between the way you're talking now and what the jury's heard on the 911 call, would you say that your voice on the 911 call is you yelling?
You could say that, yes.
Okay. So if we're talking about the conversation that you had, that when you were talking with Hillary back on December 10th, you were yelling, weren't you?
It wasn't nearly what it was on the 911 call.
Is that a yes or no?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I guess that would be a yes.
And in fact, you've heard people testify that they heard that yelling, correct?
Yes.
And you're aware of the text message that was introduced, I believe. It would have been State's Exhibit 50, the text message from Emily to you that was recovered from your phone. You're familiar with that exhibit?
I am.
And if I could, Your Honor, at this time, I want to pull that up. if I may publish States 50 and have the witness go through that with me.
Sure. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, allow me. You want the lights off, Mr. Diaz?
No, that's all right, Your Honor, thank
Okay.
you. Mr. Thomas, no, that made it worse. Mr. Thomas, we're going to look at States 50, which has previously been introduced, and this is where Emily texted you, correct? And the date on that is on 12/11, so the day after December 10th, correct?
That's correct.
And Emily, in her text to you, characterized what was happening as yelling and screaming, correct?
She did.
And you've admitted now that you were yelling that day, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then you responded by saying, okay, in that text exchange, is that
I
correct?
did.
All right. Thank you. And in fact, you then went out into the garage, as you testified to, and you kicked something. You were that upset.
I was very upset, yes.
Upset enough to kick something.
Yes.
And you heard Sheena testify that she observed that.
She did.
But after this, so Hillary moves out, and around Christmas time, you testified that the two of you reconciled.
Yes.
And you went and stayed a couple of days or nights over at her apartment.
I did.
And that then ultimately the relationship effectively ended for good after that reconciliation. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you've stated that the reason why the relationship ended was, I believe you testified on direct, that it was finances, arguing, and alcohol sometimes. Do you remember saying that?
I do.
Isn't it true that there was also accusations of infidelity?
There was.
Both ways,
Both
correct?
ways. Yes.
In fact, after you and Hillary broke it off around the new year, you then reached back out to her around Valentine's Day, correct?
I did.
In fact, you went to her apartment around Valentine's Day of 2024, correct?
I did.
And you were knocking on her door and texting her, begging her to let you in, correct?
I was.
And that didn't happen.
It did happen.
She did let you in.
No, she did not. I'm sorry. I thought you meant the
But
event.
she didn't let you in.
No, she did not.
Okay. And so you didn't get back together.
No, we did not.
And you were concerned at that time that Hillary was seeing someone else, someone named Joey, correct?
Yes, I knew that she was seeing someone named Joey.
She kept telling you that there was nothing to it.
She did.
But you kept asking.
I asked 1 or 2 times, I think.
You testified on direct that at some point, and this would be prior to the Valentine's Day situation, back in January, around the time of the birthday party, that you had, I think you testified you had gone through Hillary's phone messages and that you had seen communications with another guy. Is that correct?
I didn't say where I got it from.
Okay. You somehow then, you learned in some way, shape, or form that Hillary was seeing another guy.
He told me that they had seen each other. It was in just direct Facebook back and forth.
When you say direct Facebook back and forth, you mean between that individual and Hillary?
No, it was public.
Okay. So you saw on someone's public Facebook page that they were communicating with Hillary,
Yes, sir.
and you called that guy.
I did.
And at that point, y'all were broken up.
No, that's when we were still. This was before the birthday party.
Okay, but she had moved out of Bear Oak, and this was not over the time where you were staying with her of the holidays.
Yes, it was.
Okay, you stayed with her, I believe you testified you stayed with her from around Christmas through New Year's. And then you fought on New Year's Eve, right?
No, we were together after New Year's all the way up until the 11th of January.
Okay, so if the birthday party was on the 24th, you're saying that this would have happened before the 24th?
The birthday party was on the 13th or 14th.
Okay, the 13th or 14th. So this happened. When did this happen? When you called this guy?
2 days before the birthday party.
Okay. And at that point, you confronted Hillary about it and accused her of being unfaithful to you.
Actually, he confronted her about it, and then she messaged me.
Okay. But at any rate, that became an issue and you broke it off. She broke it off at that point.
Yeah, she said I was all drama because I called this person, and I just wanted the truth.
But she broke it off with you at that point.
She did.
And so it's after that point that we then get to Valentine's Day and you're back on her doorstep, correct?
Yes.
And that didn't work out.
No.
And then you filed custody paperwork through counsel on, I believe it was when, February 21st?
That's when she was served.
Okay. Let's look at that. Your Honor, may I retrieve a couple of exhibits?
Yes, sir. And while the DA is doing that, just for a reminder for the jurors, if you need extra pens and notepads, just remember the sheriff will be more than happy to supply those for you.
Your Honor, if we could just publish, I think it would be State's Exhibit 49.
All right. Any objection?
No, sir.
Allow. And once again, Mr. DA, do you want the lights off or?
No, Your Honor, I don't think that would be necessary.
All right.
So, Mr. Thomas, we're looking here at the copy of the custody complaint that was introduced into evidence. And at the bottom, there's an electronically filed date on it. Can you tell what that date is?
February 23rd, 2024.
Okay. So that's when it was actually filed, correct?
I'm not for sure. I retained a lawyer in November of 23.
Okay. In any event, the document is dated. You can see that on the next page, on page 2 here, but the document is dated the 21st of February 24. Is that correct?
I get, yes, sir.
And that's that name that appears there, Martin Tetro. Is that your attorney?
That is.
Okay. And then this, you would agree that it says on page 1 at the bottom where the electronically filed date, it says 2/23 of 24, correct? At 1:44 p.m.
Hey, can you scroll back up to the top for a second? I just want to see something. Okay, thank you.
So at the bottom of that first page where it says electronically filed date 2/23 of 24 at 1:44 p.m., you would agree that that's what this document indicates in terms of when it was filed?
That's what the document says.
Okay. And with regard to this document, the only other page is this last page, page 3, which is verification signed by you. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And dated 21st day of February 2024.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to now show you this would be, I think, part of States 49 that I would ask to publish.
Hello.
And this is the notice of hearing, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that is also dated and signed by your attorney on February 21st, 2024.
That is correct.
And again, at the bottom of that page, it's a little small, so I'll make it bigger. Shows the same electronic file date, correct?
Okay.
And do you know when Hillary was actually served with that paperwork?
I do not.
In fact, isn't it true that she was served just prior to the weekend in question in this case?
Objection, Your Honor. He just said he didn't know.
Well, respectfully, overruled. The question's more in particular now. If you know the answer, you can answer that question.
I don't know the exact date she was served.
In any event, you had a hearing coming up on March 18th for custody of Rob.
Yes.
And I want to go now to talk a little bit about that whole communication. Mr. Zastarski spent some time talking to you about that. In your connection with, well, in discussions with Hillary, you also had conversations with Emily about this, didn't you? About child custody.
I did.
Emily was a lawyer, correct? And in your interactions with Emily, she sometimes tried to help Hillary and you through these issues, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so isn't it true that it would sometimes end up that you would have these conversations with Emily about custody and trying to work something out with Hillary?
Yes.
We've talked about the phone call where that took place on January 29th. You had a phone call with Emily on January 29th, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
And that's the call you described to Mr. Zastarski that led to both of you, in your impression, feeling upset. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
In fact, you and Emily continued to text after that conversation about custody, did you not?
I think so, yes.
And you and informed Emily by text on February 21st that your attorney was going to be filing the paperwork we just looked at, didn't you?
Yes.
And that didn't go over very well, did it?
No, it did not.
And ultimately, there were a series of messages back and forth, and it ended without a resolution, didn't it?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about Emily. You described Emily I believe, if I read this wrong, correct me, but I think you said that you would call her little sis and she would call you big bro.
Yes.
So you knew her pretty well, correct?
I did.
You spent time not only with Hillary, but with Emily and the rest of the family.
Yes.
You knew Chris.
Yes.
You knew Miles.
Yes.
We've spent a lot of time talking about Hillary, and all the things going on in your relationship, but we didn't say much about Emily, did we?
Not really.
Objection.
Isn't that because Emily wasn't the problem?
I'm confused.
Well, let's go through. I mean, you've talked about how Hillary was drinking all the time. You haven't said Emily drank all the time, correct?
I didn't say that, no.
Okay. And in fact, you didn't know her to do that, did you?
Emily?
Yes.
No, she really didn't like to drink.
And you haven't mentioned anything about Emily being involved with Hell's Angels.
No, she wasn't.
It's kind of the strongest thing you said was that Emily hurt your feelings, isn't that right?
Objection.
I believe you testified to that.
So noted.
I want to go now, and I want to talk about March 17th, Mr. Thomas. You testified that you were over at Nick Taylor's house at a cookout, correct?
That's correct.
And you didn't see, well, you texted Hillary that afternoon, and we looked at the text. It was sometime in the afternoon, around 3, 4 o'clock, correct?
3:15.
3:15 p.m. You texted Hillary to say, what time do you want Riley back?
That's correct.
And you had previously agreed with Hillary that Riley would come back to her that night, hadn't you?
We always had a previous agreement that she would go back around 6 o'clock.
I thought you told Mr. Zezatarsky that the reason you were texting Hillary was because you didn't know what time, because it always changed.
It does.
Okay, but you said you had a previous arrangement that she would always go back at 6 o'clock.
That's about the time we would try to do the exchange, yes.
Okay. So there was generally an arrangement.
Yeah, you can say that, yes.
Okay. So 6 o'clock was generally the time. So when Hillary texted you in that same text exchange later and said 6 has always been the time, that's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And she didn't respond right away.
No, she did not.
you testified that you were hanging out and you saw her text at some point. I think I've written down that there was a text in that she sent. Let me just pull them up. Maybe it'll help if we look through them. You know, if I can publish, I believe it would be. State's 51.
Any objection?
No, sir.
Allowed. And once again, Mr. Pierre, do you want the lights on or off?
We can leave them on, Your
All
Honor.
All right.
I'm going to scroll down and this is the text you referred to, 3:17 on March 17th. What time you want her back?
Yes.
And then Hillary responded to you at 6:31. Whenever you would like to bring her back, have her dinner, but I can reheat it. Now, I was confused when I was listening to your direct. When exactly did you get that text?
Sometime after 7.
Okay. After 7 p.m. And then she texted you, let's see, she texted you several times. It's around 6:30. And then again at 6:39. And then not again until 7:44, correct?
Yes.
And so you had seen those texts at 7 over at Nick's house, correct?
I said after 7.
After 7, okay. After 7, but before when?
I think this is the text that I actually saw. This is what I heard my phone go off.
Okay. So we'll clear that up. I understood you to testify that you saw these texts when you were at Nick's. Is that not the case?
I did.
You saw them at Nick's?
Yes.
Okay. And then she texted you at 7:44, which is when you've now said you saw it, correct? It's Riley's bedtime. When are you bringing her back home?
Yes. Yes. That's when I saw them.
And then you texted her back at 7:49 and said, that's exactly right, and I just gave her a bath and put her down. If you would have responded within a timely manner, I would have brought her home. I will bring her home in the morning before work. Have a good night. Did you give her a bath and put her down at Nick's?
I gave her a bath before I went to Nick's.
Okay, did you put her down at Nick's?
She was asleep before we left Nick's.
Okay. Did you put her down at Nick's?
She was asleep before she left Nick's.
Okay, when you mean, Mr. Thomas, I'm a father too, and you know, I think that's common language when you talk about putting a child down. Doesn't it usually mean that you're putting them in their bed?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. You can answer. You can answer.
She was already asleep.
Okay, she was asleep in your friend's yard, correct?
No, inside the house.
Inside the house while you were at a cookout, correct?
We were all inside the house.
Okay. My question was, you were at a cookout at a friend's house, and your child was asleep.
Yes.
Okay. So she was not in her bed.
No.
She was not in your house at 151 Bear Road.
No, she was not.
And you had previously agreed to take her back to her mother, and 6 was normally the time, correct?
That is correct.
And her bedtime, according to Hillary's text, was around 7:45. Is that correct?
I think she said her bedtime was around 9.
Okay. So y'all were going to hang out at the cookout a little bit longer then?
No, I mean, Hillary said the bedtime was about 9. I didn't say that.
But in any event, she wasn't at home in bed. She was at a neighbor's house asleep.
No, we were at Nick's house.
Okay, Nick's house. I'm sorry, I characterize him as a neighbor. Where does Nick live?
30 minutes from my house.
Okay. So you had to drive there.
I did.
And then we get into she calls the officer,
Yes,
and then the officer called you, correct?
he did.
And were you at Nick's when the officer called you?
I was.
So what time did you actually, if it's 30 minutes, what time did you actually get back to 151 Barrett?
8:30,
Okay.
real close to it, somewhere in there.
And where in the county did Nick live?
Pine Level, right on the other side of Pine Level.
Okay. So rather than leave Nick's and take Riley back to Hillary, which you had previously agreed to do, you left the cookout and drove her back to Barrett.
I did.
All right. You've testified about being concerned about Hillary's drinking, correct?
That's correct.
And she called you 21 times that evening.
Yes.
Okay. And the first of those calls that we've looked at previously was at 7:33 p.m. And you didn't answer that, correct?
I did not.
And you would have still been at Nick's at that time, correct?
I would be.
And then she didn't call you again for another 11 minutes until 7:44, 13 p.m.
Okay.
I know you don't have the record in front of you, but would you have still been in Nick's at that point?
She called me so many times I don't know where I was from the time that when she started to when she finished.
Okay. Well, if you said you didn't leave Nick's until closer to 8 and it takes 30 minutes to get home and you got home at 8:30, if she called you at 7:45, you would have been in Nick's, correct?
By that assumption, yes.
And you didn't answer those calls.
I did not.
You didn't tell her you were at Nick's and you were finishing up and you'd have Riley home a little bit later.
No, I did not.
You just decided that it was not convenient for you to bring her back like you'd agreed to, did you?
Objection.
I decided that when I found out that she had been drinking all day and that
Okay. I'm going to object to that part of his answer because I asked a yes or no question.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is I'm going to allow you to take your break. We're going to come back at 3:45. Once again, please.